We will begin first with the public hearing on proposed warrant articles. The first ones are the land use articles. They are Articles 3 through 9, and we'll go through those one at a time. And if anybody wishes to comment on those articles, you'll have an opportunity to do that. And then in our regular agenda, the board will have an opportunity to discuss and ask questions, and we will vote to place or not on the warrant and make our recommendations. So, let's begin with Article 3. Let me get to the right place in my...
Can I make a comment as the planning
Absolutely.
board liaison, or the, so I attended this meeting when we kind of reviewed these things at the planning board level, and I didn't think there was anything here that was contentious or really problematic. Much of it is, seems to be housekeeping, so just
And that,
my impression.
Okay, yeah, and that comment actually would be better in our portion of the agenda.
Oh.
This is the public hearing now. So
Okay,
I'll open the public
sorry.
hearing on, my fault, on Article 3, which is the change to the zoning map. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of Article 3? Does anybody wish to speak in opposition to Article 3? Does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against Article 3? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Article 4, which has to do with some changes in definitions, which would include revised definitions for industrial, medical office, tradesman shop, and other uses in Section 300 of the ordinance definitions. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of Article 4? Does anybody wish to speak in opposition to Article 4? Does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against Article 4? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Article 5, which is proposed amendment includes the deletion of SE for special exceptions and replacement with P for permitted uses for several uses in the various zoning districts, meaning those uses are now permitted without a special exception. So Article 5 is in the table of permitted uses, Section 917. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of Article 5? Anybody wish to speak in opposition to Article 5?
If you can do this a lot faster than I can. No, I can't see it. Okay.
Does anybody wish to speak neither for nor against Article 5?
Not so much in for or against, but could you give us an example of what some of these exceptions are, how it's being changed?
Oh, boy. Jamie, can you help us with that? Get my land use ordinance out. There was, well, I'll let Jamie do it, because if I try to do it from memory, I'll mess it up.
All right. This is an excerpt of the Section 917 land use table. And Article 5 refers to a long-running project of the ORC to reduce the number of uses that require a special exception. And special exception means the use is not permitted and it's not prohibited, but at one of these intersections of, say, zoning district 907 and the particular use, say, recreation indoor, you find out if there's a P, it's permitted. If it's blank, it's prohibited. Or you get this third thing that's in between. Right now, they're called special exceptions in the land use ordinance. They're proposed to be renamed. That's another article to conditional uses. But to give you an example, Helen, here's one where conditional use is being added in blue. And here's one in red where conditional use, it's already a special exception, but red is just terminology change so that the name of it in the future would be conditional use. I'll leave, I know it's brings seasickness to do this, so I'll just stop right there. That key at the top is how you navigate the draft table. And I wonder if that answers your question or if I should go further.
That makes a little bit more sense.
And
Okay.
Jamie, could I ask you to, this complete document is on file at the town clerk's office.
Yes, yes, I was
if anybody
thinking
wishes to
of
see it.
starting at the top, just so that the public is aware. This is a voter's guide that you can find at the Ordinance Review Committee's page on the town website, and on paper at the town clerk's office. It starts obviously with the announcement of tonight's public hearing and the planning board's public hearing on the 12th. And then each article is summarized with a couple of sentences that are not the same as the ballot questions. What the ballot questions will say is something similar, but in the language of shall an ordinance entitled an ordinance amending the zoning map be enacted. And so that's the language you'll see on the ballot. And these are the summaries that we provided in the newspaper advertisement. So we can go ahead to the next amendment, Ken.
Any further comment on Article 5, the change in the tables? Okay. If not, does anybody wish to comment in favor of Article 6, Section 918, congregate housing? This proposed amendment includes a revised definition of congregate housing, striking the word elderly so that all such housing is treated equally, and a decrease in the minimum lot area required per bedroom in the Section 918 dimensional tables to increase maximum density for such types of housing in various zoning districts. Does anybody wish to speak in favor of Article 6? Does anybody wish to speak in opposition to Article 6?
I'll get that on the screen. I don't know whether the proponents of the amendment realized that that was their moment to speak, so you might want to circle back to it after.
Good evening. My name is Bob Duke. I live at 3 Bayberry Lane. I believe that this particular article has much to do with one particular application that has been before the planning board, was withdrawn, and now has been shepherded through by our town planner and ORC committee to ensure that what will be congregate housing in my backyard, so I have to be a bit of a NIMBY for a few minutes. My concern is that we're spot zoning, we're changing the ordinance for pretty specific application. When I think about the town of Rockport and the 60 years that I've lived here, I can't think of any other time when we have had cluster housing for anything other than a retirement facility. And other than somebody wanting to put in a cluster motel, that this would be inappropriate normally in the town of Rockport. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment in opposition to Article 6? And by Jamie's suggestion, I'll go back and see if anybody wants to comment in favor of Article 6.
I would just like to comment, I don't know that it's in favor, but I was involved in the process of the ORC just reviewing this, and I think a lot of what's gone on here isn't necessarily driven by a particular application, but really clarifying a lot of what existed in the ordinance. There was reference to unit, density, et cetera, but I think this has become much clearer in this version. And as far as NIMBY, I certainly understand the concerns. However, I wouldn't consider this spot zoning.
Actually, before you leave, could you tell us, we know who you are, but all the people watching at home want to know who you are.
I'm Tia Anderson. I am with Midcoast Habitat for Humanity and working in collaboration with the Knox County Homeless Coalition.
Thank you. Any further comment on Article 6, commenting neither for nor against? Okay. Move on to Article number 7, multifamily housing. The proposed amendment includes a reduction of the minimum lot area per dwelling unit in the dimensional tables for multifamily uses connected to public sewer to increase maximum density of such types of housing in various zoning districts. Does anybody wish to comment in favor of Article 7? Does anybody wish to comment in opposition to Article 7? Anybody wish to comment neither for nor against Article 7? Okay, we'll move on to Article 8. Section 919, conditional uses. This was referred to by Jamie before, and this proposed amendment includes the deletion and replacement of Section 703.3 special exceptions with a new Section 919 called conditional uses, the removal of jurisdiction from the Zoning Board of Appeals to the Planning Board, simplified criteria for approval, and revising SE to read CU everywhere it appears on the Section 917 table of permitted uses. Does anybody wish to comment in favor of Article 8? Does anybody wish to comment in opposition to Article 8? Anybody wish to comment neither for nor against Article 8?
This was the one substantive comment from the town attorney. Thought it might be worth mentioning on the public hearing floor, even though we'll have an opportunity to discuss. It's very much a housekeeping comment, but because we have to go throughout the ordinance and find other references to the Zoning Board of Appeals and make sure that they're consistent, if this proposed amendment is approved, I just wanted to make sure that I mention it during the public hearing portion. So, for example, Chapter 700 describes the powers of the Zoning Board of Appeals. There might be other references in Chapter 700 where we need to amend that to be consistent with what's proposed in conditional uses generally. So the ballot question for this will say something like, and other changes necessary to make the land use ordinance conform with this change, just so you're aware of that.
Okay. Given that knowledge, does anybody now want to comment on this article in any way, shape, or fashion? Okay. Move on to Article 9. I think that's the one we're on, yep. And this proposed amendment consists of so-called minor cleanup editing throughout the land use ordinance. Before I ask for comments, Jamie, do you want to briefly summarize what that means for the audience?
Again, this one, similar kind of housekeeping suggestion from the town attorney. He said where you're proposing these changes, even if they're just typos and cleanups, it would be beneficial to have a track changes version with the red text and the strikeout like we do for others. So we'll upgrade the packet with that. And that was his comment. And to respond to your question, what are these? There are about 3 of them that have been spotted by the code officer over the course of the year. One of them is a small change to the floodplain management ordinance, which is strictly for consistency with the change in state guidelines. And others are, let's see. That's the same one, floodplain. Here, Scott has observed, why are you mentioning Route 17 in this note? Because these 2 zoning districts, actually, there's no land that abuts Route 17, small things like that. And this is a funny example because in another proposed amendment, this note is proposed to be deleted entirely. But that is the scale, extremely minimal scale of this cleanup section.
Okay. So does anybody wish to comment for Article 9? Anybody wish to comment in opposition to Article 9? Anybody wish to comment neither for nor against Article 9? Okay, that concludes the public hearing on the land use articles. We now have a public hearing on warrant Article 10, which is proposed amendment to the harbor ordinance. Proposed amendment includes a change to allow special exceptions from certain requirements upon a recommendation from the Harbor Committee and approval by the Select Board, and other minor revisions throughout. And the board has the harbor ordinance in hand. And we have, Sam is here if anybody has any comment. First, does anybody wish to, I'm actually wondering if, Sam, would you mind coming up and giving a very brief summary of the high points of the changes that are being made here so that people know what they're commenting on?
I don't have it in front of me tonight, but, the heart of it is this avenue to create a process for special exceptions. And the special exceptions are only applicable to the mooring use section, so we're not creating a process for special exceptions to, docks and piers, or other uses. It's mooring only.
Okay.
And, a lot of consideration went into the process by which one would be granted or be given an audience for a special exception. Essentially, it's moving up a chain from, through the harbor master to you guys, to the select board, with a recommendation or not from the harbor committee, but always reaching the select board.
Okay. Thank you. We may call you back later in our discussion if we have specific questions. Does anybody wish to comment in favor of Article 10, an amendment to the harbor ordinance? Does anybody wish, do you want to comment? Would you like to come on up and make a quick comment? And identify yourself also, please.
Ken Dodge. I'm a fisherman in Rockport, and I favor bigger boats being in the harbor. And the harbor's growing, and it's going to keep growing, not just in this harbor, in a lot of harbors. And we have to expand our harbor. I don't want to be left behind with all the other harbors moving forward.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anybody else wish to comment in favor of Article 10? Does anybody wish to comment in opposition to Article 10? Anybody wish to comment neither for nor against Article 10? And I see, Jamie, you had
You read my
something.
mind. This also had one helpful comment from the town attorney, all the way to the last sentence of the draft, Jeff. But before a page that is dedicated to previous revisions, as Sam was saying, here's the appeals process. I'm trying to, go ahead.
You do it.
All right. So the town attorney just recommended that as we're having a harbor committee recommend and the select board decide on one of these so-called special exceptions, just that we clarify with a few more words in this paragraph that the select board's review is either de novo. In other words, you guys might not, you might hear all the facts again, or it's a genuine appeal where you're just going to take the findings of the harbor committee and everything that they gathered for information to form their recommendation, and you'll look at that again. And that's what's intended here, along with Sam and Abby, the harbor master. I helped significantly working on the mechanics of this appeal. And what makes the most sense is to assume that the select board is reviewing a decision that the harbor committee made for its recommendation to the select board, and that the select board is not entertaining new facts at that time. If new facts come to light, effectively you would remand to the committee. So a few more words that the town attorney suggested would go in this point 3, reflecting the posture of the select board's review.
Are you saying it will go, or this is the final?
No, the town attorney, we never touched the language in between the date that we handed off to Linda
Yeah.
and the public hearing.
Yeah.
So it's not a moving target for
Right,
members of the public who want to.
right.
Okay, so it could either be left alone, or the town attorney's recommendation was to add a few more words to the effect that the select board will review the recommendation and the same record of facts that was reviewed by the harbor committee. A few more words to that effect would be added if,
Section .3.
yep.
And I would, and I'll ask, just as a fact here, I believe that this section refers to appeals generally, not just to the special exception procedure that you
Oh.
referred to earlier.
Let's see.
So agreed by decision of the
Oh.
harbor master.
Yes.
So this is
But
not-
that actually was the town attorney's point about appeals generally.
Right, okay. I just want to make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, public hearing is still open. Does anybody have any further comments on Article 10, for, against, or neither for nor against? Okay, hearing none, then I will close the public hearing at 7:20. Moving on, we have one set of minutes to approve, and I would entertain a motion here.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve these minutes as presented. Does anybody have any discussion on there? The only thing that I would suggest, Linda, is if I'm remembering correctly, the vote is 3-0 in here for the motion that was on here, and Owen is shown as being present, which he was for most of the meeting, but last night you left a little bit early.
Yeah.
So it would be good, I think, to have a notation that Owen left the meeting prior to the vote. And I don't know what time it was, but it's probably a few minutes before,
You all weren't on by the time I got home,
yeah.
I think.
So it was just before the vote, because he had to leave for family issues. So that's the only suggestion I would make. So if the rest of the board concurs with that, then I would ask for the vote on the approval of these minutes. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Okay. Public comment. First, any agenda changes at all? Hearing none, move on to public comment. Public comment should be directed at issues not under discussion on this evening's agenda. Comment from the public will be welcome prior to each agenda item. Further comment to be granted only by permission of the board. All public comment should be brief and to the point. Do we have anybody who wishes to make public comment this evening?
Helen Shaw, Pascal Avenue. In the 2017-2018 budget, there is money to clear the title for the library lot and Memorial Park, and yet nothing has been done about that. And I would like to know why and when they plan to do that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to make any comment on that?
With the library moving forward on the existing lot, it just didn't seem like a really high priority at this point to spend money on that at this point.
Okay.
I'd still like to get it taken care of.
Yeah, I think it may not have been the highest priority, but I think the sooner we get it taken care of, the better. Any further public comment this evening? Okay, on to the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager, you have the floor.
Try to be brief if I can. The ambulance contract, I have a meeting on Wednesday. We've been meeting probably every couple weeks on a revised contract that will be a performance-based contract that will have less specifics about the number of vehicles and paramedics that will be on every shift, and have a performance standard that they'll have to meet instead of designating that they would have a certain number of paramedics and trucks on hand at all times, which seems to be better. We had a meeting with Rick Petrie, who is, for anybody that's been involved in this for a while, Rick is heavily involved in the statewide ambulance and paramedic training association and all of that. He was instrumental in helping the two towns go through this, or the four towns go through this process about 5 or 6 years ago. And it was his opinion that also going to a performance-based standard contract would be a better way to go. So the four managers are meeting with Butch on Wednesday at, I believe it's 1 o'clock, to try and see if we can finalize that contract and bring it to the ambulance review committee, who will then meet as soon as we get his buy-in to it, and bring it back to the individual towns for their votes, because the contract runs out the end of June. The Rockland Street, I met with Dave Herrick, and we put an ad in the paper for proposals to remove the building. So far, the deadline for those proposals is April 13th. So far, we've only had one from Dave Herrick. It's not like it's something that everybody's clamoring to get that building or tear it down, and not cost us anything, so hopefully with that, we'll have something on the agenda for the May meeting. The status of the Heron and Boat Club lease, after the last select board meeting, I reached out to both the Heron and the Boat Club. I have a meeting tomorrow with Bonnie from the Heron, and I did get a response back from the Friday afternoon after writing this. I did get a response back from one of the members of the board from the Boat Club, and said that they would be bringing that up to their discussion. I think they have a meeting on Tuesday also for some reason. I think that's what she had said. The draft polystyrene ordinance has been sent to town council for review. I still have not gotten any feedback from him. He's been busy on a bunch of other things we've been dealing with all our ordinance changes and a bunch of things here, so he hasn't gotten back to me on this one yet. My gut feeling is there's nothing in statute that says that we can't have a public hearing early in the process, and we could move this forward in July, have the public hearing, if the ordinance is all worded correctly, get it all tagged up and wrapped up and ready to go, so when she goes off to school, it's just a matter of having it on the ballot. So I'm thinking we'll be okay. I don't know of any reason that we couldn't have the public hearing and all the work done well in advance. I mean, it's really not in that much in advance, because it has to be done by September 6th anyway. So, the interlocal agreements, I have signed off on the interlocal agreements as the board wanted, and have forwarded those off to Camden for Audra's signature. As of now, I haven't gotten them back from her. One of the questions was, the police agreement is a 3-year agreement, and we have another 2 years to go. It ends in June of 2020.
Can I ask a quick question on that note, which is, we caught that some of these interlocals didn't have signatures on them. Do we have a consolidated list of all of our interlocal agreements?
We
and
do,
do we know
yeah.
we're up to date on all of them?
We do have a lease agreement and interlocal agreement list. It just got missed in transferring changes in people, and it didn't get updated. So,
I think the wastewater ones are not too far down the road.
no, I think,
Those are big.
yeah, those are in the 2020, I think.
And Camden wants to renegotiate around there, don't
Yeah,
they?
I think it's 2020, is those ones.
Is that something that's kept in your office, the
Diane?
maintenance of that? I mean,
Diane has it.
all right.
The streetlight saga continues. I've had so many conversations, it's almost to the point of craziness. I've had so many email conversations, Randy's had conversations, Craig has had conversations, you've had conversations with them. She even came out, and Craig drove her out to show her the exact streetlights and locations. when we sent them we did a lot of work over the summer getting GPS locations on all of the streetlights so that we could create a spreadsheet, which we have done. Molly and Megan and Craig and Randy have been working on developing a spreadsheet so that we can track when they were reported and when they were fixed with Latin Lawn and all of that. And when we told them that we were using Latin Lawn locations rather than the actual street names, we were told that, oh, great, because that's the way they send the drivers out, is by the Latin Lawn coordinates. And then when we submitted the list of streetlights with Latin Lawn and street, the street names, and I think we even had the names that they called them too. It was our street names and their street names, because they still have some of the old street names. I think, Mark, wasn't it because they still call this Commercial Street, past Commercial Street, because that's where.
Route 1 had 3 different names, or,
Yeah, exactly. And so,
Commercial Street.
yeah,
Route 1.
and that we were told that they just wanted us to fax the list, the handwritten list that we've always done, which in these days of faxing a handwritten list, it makes it very difficult for us to track and monitor. And according,
Take a picture with your phone and email it to them.
Done,
they're just not,
done.
And at some point, I want you to finish your line of thinking, but can you also kind of gloss over what is our responsibility and what is not our responsibility, but also what we're prohibited from doing? Because I know some folks would think that Public Works can just pop up a ladder, change out a light.
oh, yeah, no.
But the kind of reasoning behind why we have a lot of lights that are out and why we can't be the ones.
We can't, we rent the lights from them. So we can't just go up there and repair them. One of the questions that was asked, I think, last fall was, well, can't we just not pay for the lights that aren't working? And just withhold payment from that? And I checked with town council, and we can't do that. We don't have that option.
I disagree with town council.
But what he did say, what we can do is that's one of the reasons we developed a spreadsheet, is when we develop a spreadsheet and say, here's when we reported it, here's when we went out and inspected again, here's when it's still not working, here's where we reported it again, then we can go to the PUC and make a claim that they're not providing the service that they're supposed to. And that's our only course of action, is to go to the PUC and make a complaint.
Dare say CMP is probably quite familiar with the PUC. these
Yeah,
days.
I'd say, given what's going on.
Perfect.
Under pressure right now.
Perfect timing to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, except that like every attorney's busy right now.
Yeah. Update on the planning department. With the reduction in the planning budget, I've contacted Mid-Coast Economic Development District and former planner Bill Napower, and we've worked out an agreement with him. He will work, we had been working on him with the amendment of the TIF sewer extension and the TIF project amendment. So we've extended that to 16 to 20 hours a week, and it will fall within our budget, which the new budget that you have, and we actually have enough money to implement that. He'll be starting next Wednesday. They'll pick up next week. They'll pick up and start covering the planning department for the remainder of this year, and then there's enough money in the budget to cover that for the next year. One of the advantages to this option is that, one of the things we have to be cautious of is that as we start to grow, if business changes and we're getting more development and stuff starts happening again, we may want to go back to a full-time planner. But if that's the case, we're not obligated more than a month-to-month basis for this option.
I have one comment and one question. The comment is, I hope this will be on your report monthly going forward.
How we're doing?
Yeah, an
Oh, yeah,
update.
sure.
And the second is, are there been any problems yet that you're aware of?
Not yet. You know, we can't go very long.
Yeah,
It depends on how busy we get.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't been terribly busy,
Okay.
so,
so far, so good?
so far, so good.
Sort of
Yeah.
like the guy falling off the building?
Yeah,
going
so
by
far,
the
so
third
until
floor?
you hit the
Okay.
bottom. No, I mean, some of the work that we have coming up that's sort of critical is stuff that Bill has been working on. We've been contracting with him to do anyway, is the TIF stuff and the sewer extension stuff. So he's been working on that for the past couple months. So I mean, I think we're in okay shape. If we suddenly saw an influx of a lot of building happening, we may want to rethink that. But I think we're okay.
I had a quick question. So that first sentence, with the reduction of the planning budget, I've contracted with Midcoast Economic Development District. Can I read that Midcoast Economic Development District as Jamie and former planner Bill Napower?
No,
Jamie's organization is different.
Jamie's organization is Midcoast Planning.
It goes regional planning.
Because I
division.
know that Bill has a huge amount of understanding, but I thought that our plan was also to retain
Jamie is working
monies
on,
for Jamie,
Jamie's working on the comprehensive plan update and also the ORC stuff, all the stuff that we're working on now.
which is separate from this
That's
portion of the
separate than
update?
Than this.
Okay, just making sure. I just felt like like this was the whole planning update, and yet a big portion of what I thought our kind of planning office contracted was including Jamie as well.
One of the things we left money in the budget for the comprehensive plan update, and we had been working with the Midcoast Planning Commission on doing a rewrite of that work. And so Jamie is working on that now, and the expectation would be, is we'd move into the next phase of that in next budget year of the rewrite of that plan, of which Jamie would be working on.
Who's going to be liaisoning with the planning board? Who's going to be because we would,
Yeah,
or the ordinance review committee, or, I mean, we would typically have Jamie there to act as kind of.
Jamie would still do that.
Okay.
For the comprehensive plan committee. But for planning board, it would be Bill.
Okay. And he'll be attending
The
all their
planning board
meetings?
meetings, yep.
Okay.
You'll notice it's a lot of hours, though. You know, that's the difference. It's just not a good fit for our business model to be a consultant to all the towns in Knox and Waldo
You
County.
have to come up, Jamie, sorry.
I give one of them 20 hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Public Works Department has been in transition. I'm hopeful there's no big storms on the horizon. So they're in transition between winter and spring. They started brush cutting and winter cleanup, so they've been doing some of that work, doing some dismantling of trucks, but they did have to go out and plow on Friday. They started putting docks in. I don't know if any more went in today or not. And they've started doing some some piling replacements. We're also, given the new budget coming up, we're working on a more detailed sidewalk inventory so that we have a more detailed inventory of all the sidewalks in town. Currently, the inventory we have are the most detailed inventory we have is of the ones we have plowed or snow removal on. So we're updating it to include all of those other, all the other sidewalks in town, of which there is probably probably close to 2,000 feet of other sidewalk in town that we don't get plowed.
And And I would think actually that the Pathways Committee may be willing to help with that. They've done sidewalk inventories in the past, and so they have people who are used to doing it. And,
Right.
Well, and they already have a document.
Right, yeah, they have a.
Oh, they do?
They have
Oh,
a
yeah.
document that
Oh, yeah.
they've used, because they've done
okay.
it for Rockport before, and
I'll
I think
have
it's been
Mike-
a couple of years, hasn't
Yeah.
it? now?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
have
but
Mike-
we
So
updated
then
it
it's just a matter of
last
he has
year.
to update it to,
Ours is in, the Pathways document is a pretty ongoing thing, so it's never more than a couple of years since it's been updated, from my knowledge anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, it may be that they just have to go out there and then grade them.
I think we do that because
Oh, do you?
it provides
Okay. I'm gonna-
justification when we try to give a
Yep.
priorities list
Yeah.
that we've looked and figured out. I mean, to the point where it's like, hey, there's three utility poles in the
Yep.
middle of this portion of the sidewalk, please
Yep.
address.
I'm sending Mike a text right now while it's on my mind.
And while we're at a brief pause, does technology ever get to a place, and I'm directing this kind of at Abby, and I think I brought this up to you before, where we get pylons that aren't pressure-treated logs? When do we upgrade to like composite pilings that will last for a long, long time, where it's cost-effective? And if you want to come up here to the mic, because they're going to say that at some point. I want to know when technology brings the cost down of these long-term pylons, because we're doing this on a cyclic.
Yeah, that's a good question. What we use now along the head wall for just the sort of fender piles, you can call them.
Yeah.
They're basically aesthetic, is oak. So we don't use pressure treated piles
Okay.
there. That would be A, too costly, B, they splinter. There's a lot of reasons why you don't want to use those. On the ones that have integrity, that the docks are made to, that's like a rainforest, like teak wood. That's called green heart. So it's like a super hard pile that takes, and that's pretty much the industry standard. Sam, you can these guys use pressure treated with like a pipe fitting, or you have to do something for floats to wear on. So like the new floats that we're going to put in now, we're hoping to buy some pressure treated and figure out a way, whether it's just some sort of chafe gear so that they can run up and down, because the pressure treated splits and it's kind of nasty stuff.
And I suppose at the heart of the question is just wanting to know that we're doing proper long-term planning, like we talk about dirt roads versus tarred roads and all this type of stuff. When does technology get to a place? Are we buying the stuff that's got the good longevity? It's a good bit of gear that we're not having to change out.
It's tough because the worms love the oak, and they will pick one and then not three and then six in a row and just eat the bottom of them. I mean, you can look when they took them out, the whole
You do.
bottom
You're
is
always
just,
seeing sometimes just the bottom.
just the bottom,
hanging
and that's what happens.
everything.
And then and actually, Doug, we spoke last week when we were putting them in, and they really are aesthetic barriers. In some places, they do, I think, make some sense to have, to keep the granite wall in. But for the most part, I don't suggest having nothing there, just for the visual eye and just, but there are ways, there's got to be a way to strap them down so they don't have to go all the way to the bottom, and they can just be sort of decorative, top piles.
Haven't you started doing that, just bolting them to the head wall, to the wall?
We haven't found a
bulkhead?
good way to do it yet, but we're brainstorming, and I do think I need to get a hold of the bar in Bar Harbor. I do think they do just sort of what they call like dummy piles, where they're from the head wall. It might look kind of funny from across the harbor, but whatever.
Okay.
So we're kind of looking at. I don't know of any composite material they can use, and it would be very expensive. To
Oh,
use
and
those.
maybe I've also confused it by not saying dolphins, the ones that are out of.
You're talking about just the ones along the head wall, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and this is definitely and if we can continue maintain to change them out, they're $100 a piece to change the pine.
Well, I'm going to have to comment, because those ones along the head wall really don't perform any structural function.
No.
They provide perhaps a visual barrier, but if you go out there now, which I did the other day, about 80% of those you can just swing on the one bolt. So I don't think we should be replacing any pilings that just are there for aesthetic value, unless we can find something that makes it look better. There's certainly some that are functional over near the fisherman's side, where we, tie in floats and stuff like that. But most of them aren't serving
Those are the ones
anything.
that I'm more,
Yeah.
the ones that actually do get
Yeah.
used, and, you know, someone may tie a boat off to temporarily, or
Yeah.
may get holding the float in place or something.
I would suggest,
'Cause, geez, you could
Sounds
just
like a discussion for the harbor committee.
stub off 6 feet off of these things and just have them sticking up.
right, and for the fishermen, they lay alongside when the floats aren't in, so those would be
Right,
important to
those
keep.
are important.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but I would love to brainstorm.
Sorry, I
Well,
know I'm
let's-
taking up a bunch of time.
Let's
Take care of it, Sam.
Let's refer that to the harbor committee. Okay.
So much for my quick manager's report. Don't blame me. But we're also working with representatives of DOT and the county and surrounding communities on updating the roads management software, which we've did a lot of work on last summer. One of the things that it's missing is culvert data, and no place to put culvert information into that roads management software.
You did.
So several of the towns, Rockport, Camden, Rockland, Union, were interested in paying for an upgrade to the system, which was surprisingly not very expensive. But the state representative from DOT came down and has been meeting with us, and I think the state is going to take that on because they feel like they have a willing group of people willing to help get it implemented, and then also provide suggestions, and so it looks like as if they're gonna take that on and do it as part of a state project. So we'll get that done. The Keep Rockport Beautiful cleanup.
Question on
Yeah.
that, sorry. But doesn't the town already have all that information from the work that Peter did?
Yes, we do have it, but it's entered into a kind of the sign play. There was no place for him to put it, so he had to put it, I think, you might know, Megan, but I think he had to put it into the sign, there's a sign module for it. And so he had to, it's basically living in the wrong place because it was not the culvert, there was not a place to put the culvert data. We collected it all, we're ahead of a lot of places, but we have no place to really put it that fits in the roads management software.
Okay, and that's something that we use as part of
Yes.
the DOT?
Yep. So the idea is the roads management software, when it has all these components all put together, right now, all it does is spit out information based on paving and paving costs and those things. But if you're talking about a road rebuild, and it will also have a place for the culvert data to live and the sign data to live in one software module. So they just, they didn't develop that, they're developing it now, and we're helping I think there's about, actually, I think there's about 7 towns in Mid-Coast that are now involved with the state to update that software. The Keep Rockport Beautiful cleanup day is scheduled for the 27th and 28th. As usual, the town staff will be cleaning up Main Street and Camden Street. The fire department has been very busy. They do a lot of training. The chief and several of the guys spent all day in training on Saturday. They've done extrication training, confined space training with the city of Rockland, and I think on Saturday's training was also combined with the city of Rockland's training. The chief also will be at the National Chiefs Convention beginning on April 23rd. For the first time in quite a while, the police department is enjoying the benefit of being fully staffed again. And new police officer Chris Taylor completed a 3-day training to be certified as a certified child passenger safety technician. I mean, they just threw me in the back of the car and put a seatbelt on me and I was safe, and now it's...
Those were handcuffs.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So he will be offering programs throughout the year to get parents and caregivers get their child safety seats properly installed. I think he's working right now with the library to have that done at library events. And both our police chief and fire chief from Camden participated in a forum at the high school on one of our budget nights to discuss school safety. We've advertised for the new Opera House manager and rental agent, and we're collecting resumes and applications now. The design team for the new library has been meeting weekly to try and get the design and related costs in line with what we think is an attainable goal for construction. So that's moving forward. Thankfully, the budget is nearly complete. Thankfully. Hopefully, you'll finish that up today, and so we can move on to other things. And finally, MMA is sending me to the National League of Cities Conference on May 8th through the 12th in Santa Fe. They pick up the whole tab. It's a risk conference that covers insurance and safety training. That, I attended it last year also, and it was very good, and I learned a lot at it, so,
Is that all part of your being on the executive committee?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Okay.
that's it.
I have
Further
questions.
questions?
Yes. I've noticed some of the other towns, I believe Rockland and Camden, have been putting their managers' reports in the newspapers on kind of a regular basis.
We send it to the newspaper, whether they print it or not, I don't
I
know.
wonder why they just do Camden and Rockland.
I don't know.
and not ours.
Well, we send out the packet that's available to us is public information,
And
and they get it.
They get it, yep.
But they may.
Well, wouldn't it be a service to our constituents if we maybe made a phone call to them and say, hey, you're doing it for Camden and Rockland?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I might suggest is because it's embedded within our packet, that maybe they look through the whole
Separate
packet
it
and say,
out.
oh, this is 100 pages long, we're
Yeah.
not going to publish
Yeah.
that. Maybe we
Maybe we
should send
should
the
send it
report
separately.
on
Send
their
it
separate
separately.
cover or whatever, yeah.
One
Because
thing I'll say on that real briefly is I won't speak for Rockland or for Camden, but I had sat in on a couple of meetings where the feel that I got was that Camden hadn't been amazing about broadcasting out some of their stuff, and with their more recent board members wanting to do that, with Audra coming on board, it's something that they've kind of ramped up as more of a priority for them, which is why I think Camden at least is making it into the news more often. It was more of a deliberative recent effort.
But
But
I-
something we should probably
Well,
try to follow too.
Yeah, I for
agree
one
with
would
you.
like to see it.
I mean, it's good information, and I know that over the years, Rick has asked previous boards saying, gee, can I not have to go through my report at the meeting? And my comment has always been, that's important information for the town to hear. And so if we can get it out in other ways, I think that's great.
If you put it in the newspaper, we'll let you off the hook here.
Well, we'll see.
I'd go along with that.
It's all posted on the website.
Oh, I know, but that's different, Rick,
Yeah.
you know what I
Oh, yeah.
mean? It shows up
Right.
there on the Pilot or
Right,
Village Soup, and people read it.
Do a Facebook post, Rick.
yeah.
And we're
And that's true.
I don't know about Facebook these days.
Well, no, actually, we've had more applicants for the Opera House position
Facebook
through
post?
the Facebook page.
Huh, interesting.
I think 90% of the applicants we've gotten has been through Facebook.
Did you do a sponsored post?
No, we did not.
So you just did
I don't
one
think so.
regular post?
Yeah.
Not even a sponsored?
Right, and it's,
I would say every person we've hired in the last year has been, somebody saw the ad on Facebook.
You getting all their personal data?
and sending it to Cambridge Analytics.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Moving on now, we don't have any unfinished business, no gifts this week, no changes to committees, no committee presentations. So we're all the way down to item E on new business, which is to vote to start the process of putting together the town warrant. And so we'll start with the land use ordinance articles 3 through 10, which does include the harbor ordinance, because harbor is number 10. And so what we need to do with these, this is the drill, is that we need to vote to place the article on the warrant, and providing that that motion passes, then the select board needs to make our recommendations, and this is where we can ask more questions about the articles as we go through them.
And this is where, if you look in your pile, it's been reformatted a bit, and it's the one that has color on it that you should be using. Good.
Yeah, I keep looking, and I don't want to sound like I'm wicked lazy or something, but I'd like to see the budget committee votes for these before. Do we have those, and they're just
No, they're gonna
not
meet
on here?
tomorrow.
Till after we do.
They do it tomorrow.
Is
That's
that
the
in-
protocol.
That's the protocol.
Yeah, we have to do it first.
Does that seem backwards to anyone else? That they've heard this in depth more than we have, and they're waiting for our recommendation on
Yeah,
it before
it's
they
your
make
budget that
theirs?
moves forward.
No, not the budget, and I understand the budget stuff. I'm more of these land use ordinance
They don't
changes.
vote on, they don't vote on the land use ordinance.
Oh,
articles.
you mean the planning board
does.
does?
Right, that's what I'm,
And the planning
I'm
board,
sorry, and I looked at the budget committee
oh,
one, and I
yeah.
meant to say planning
Planning
board.
board, okay.
Yeah, typically, the planning board would go before us, but
Yeah.
because of a mix-up in the advertisements that were placed this year, the advertisement didn't get placed early enough with enough notice to meet the law. So that's why the planning board had a discussion at their meeting last week, so that they could go through them, and if they had any strong comments or anything like that, that we would be able to see those. And I know Doug and I were there, and I think you watched some of
I
it.
tried to watch some of it.
And,
Yeah, that's the
so
normal.
that's the normal, you're right, the normal for the land use articles would be that the planning board would go first, but this year that's not able to happen because of a mix-up in the advertisements being placed.
And this is it. We can't wait for an opinion from them before we give ours. We don't have time enough to
have
do
time.
that.
We don't, no, because of the ballots have to be printed. Linda's over there nodding her head, so.
I think, Owen, as I mentioned earlier, I'm liaison to both Planning Board and the Harbor Committee, and I don't think there's going to be any dissension on these.
Planning board had
My
a few
impression.
questions at the meeting that you and I were at, but they seemed to, when Jamie explained everything to them, they all seemed, they had a few questions looking for clarifications, but I didn't sense any division among their ranks at all. I don't know whether you did or not.
No, and again, I feel comfortable that in all these cases, the proper process was followed and both sides of issues were heard and stuff.
No, and I'm not doubting that at all. I know how
mean,
much
you're
time they
right.
spend with it, and I apologize that I said the budget committee first, but
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It should go that way, but unfortunately, because we're sort of backed into a corner this year, it can. And legally, we're okay. It would be nice, but at any rate. Okay, let's start with Article 3. And I'm not going to read the whole article because in terms of the zoning, I don't think we need to, do we, Linda?
I don't think so.
Okay.
My only question for you, Linda, is would you like to hear the ballot question language as opposed to the summary language that we have in the advertisement? Okay. The best way to go, in my opinion, is just to decide to put them on the ballot as, with the changes recommended by the town attorney that I already covered. So that's on the record already.
And those changes are all semantic in nature, housekeeping type things. Okay,
can I ask one last question?
yep.
So I know for kind of legalese, and I'm looking over to you as well, for legalese, we need to do this to set this language onto the ballot. We had our public hearing, and we're gonna set the language. As it relates to the printing, is there that same, can we set the language tonight and hold off on our recommendations until later?
The recommendation has to be printed on the ballot.
Right.
My ballots have to go to the printer by the end of the day, Friday the 13th. Jamie's not even having a planning board until the 12th, so I'm already.
Gotcha.
done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And that recommendation that you make, it's a really solemn requirement of a home rule community that you invite the public to that. So the notice was for today.
And I know a lot of people look at the recommendations. I look at the recommendations and infer a lot from those recommendations, and I've been kind of struggling with that, not having recommendations from the planning board. And also, and I'll totally own this, I didn't know that document that you were looking at, that said it was posted March 22nd, I think, I didn't know that document existed. I probably overlooked something somewhere, But I've been trying to go over all of these land use ordinances based off what was given to us in the packet and my recollection of talking about these things over the last year or so. But I just, this is my quick vent before I do this, that I don't feel like I've really got a grasp on what has changed from my previous conversations, that we've had good conversations about this stuff, to what is actually now written that I'm recommending go out to the citizenry. And I'm just kind of struggling with that.
For my part, I apologize that I did all the steps that I would usually do, but just like Bill with the planning board, we're all gonna have to learn how exactly to manage these processes with outside consultants. And I think there must have been a moment when I could have alerted the select board, hey, this ad in the paper is also 60 pages of stuff at Linda's office, and it's posted on our website. So for the public who followed the process in previous years, there was no interruption in service. You know, they could find all that stuff the same way as before. But I don't think I reached out to the select board in the same way as before. Sorry about that.
No, when we were transitioning, we were doing a lot of, different
I
balls in
guess the
air.
question, Owen, is are you aware of a problem, or are you just, the process bothers you?
I'm not aware of a problem, and that's maybe one of my issues, is I haven't been so intimate with this to say that there are no problems, and I fully recommend. I mean,
Well, you
we've been
can
talking
abstain.
about, no, I can't abstain. We've been talking about special exemptions and permitted uses and going through, and I was all on board with those conversations. What I haven't done yet is gone through and actually visually looked at all of the changes that are going from special exemptions to permitted or whatever the,
Conditional, that's just a change in
Conditional.
terminology. Let's go through them one at a time.
Yes,
And
you have
Jamie, I think it would
the
be a good
ORC liaison, the planning board liaison.
If you have the wording as you have it right now, that they're gonna go on the ballot,
Sure.
I think it'd be a good idea for you to read that, just so that we're all clear with that. So let's start with Article 3. If you could read the wording for that one, that would be great.
Shall an ordinance entitled, Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Land Use Ordinance at Section 200 to update the zoning map, including clarifications of building footprint limitations in the 906 and 907 mixed business residential zoning districts, be enacted.
And I would move to place that article on the ballot as read.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to place on the ballot. Do we have any discussion at all? And this article is simply making a new zoning map. The zoning map we have is 5 years old, and there've been a couple of changes that have been noted, and so this brings it up to date. And the ORC actually spent quite a bit of time on this, and the map is really good. It is good.
This one I haven't had problems with.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of placing on the ballot? Okay, none opposed. It's a 4-0 vote. Doug did, yeah.
No, actually, Owen did.
Owen?
Oh, yeah, I think I made it and Owen seconded.
Right.
Yeah, correct, sorry.
Hard to remember that.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, now we need to make our recommendation on this article. Does anybody want to have any discussion about it before making a recommendation? If not, all those in favor of voting for this article, so making a recommendation for it? Any voting against? Okay, so that's a 4-0 recommendation on Article 3. Okay, Jamie, Article 4, the ballot question, please.
Shall an ordinance entitled, Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Land Use Ordinance at Section 300 to revise the definitions of industrial, medical office, tradesman's shop, and other uses, be enacted?
I move to place Article 4 on the ballot as printed.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion here?
So, Jamie, if I remember correctly, and then I watched some of the planning board's discussion around this one is targeted, I believe, a bit at trying to relax some of what usages are allowed in kind of a person's home. I want to keep saying like business use of home, but that's more for like tax purposes. But with an example being on Route 17, you've got like some folks that have their house and then they've got a garage right next to their house and they want to do some minor-ish mechanic repair work. There was maybe some ambiguity about some of these definitions for someone in that kind of, what do we,
And I can answer part of that. One of them was the tradesman shop. That was a big one.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of discussion about how to define that, and I think we clarified that definition. And also, part of that was that, and part of this was the exercise that we went through about revising special exceptions to permitted uses. Sometimes there were some zoning districts where, well, something might have sort of kind of fit the tradesman shop definition, but it didn't fit another permitted use, or it was a whatever. And so we looked at that and said, well, these things ought to be permitted uses, and then tightened up the definition of tradesman shop so that it's a little bit more clearly defined. Because the ZBA had some difficulty with that tradesman shop definition in a case that went through this year because it was somewhat ambiguous. So it was a lot of cleaning that up. So I think you're right there. One of the other definitions we looked at was medical clinics, which were not permitted in several zones in town, and we revised that definition to define a medical clinic as a larger medical establishment, because we didn't want to preclude the possibility, for example, a one-shop dentist opening an office right here in the village on the second floor or something like that. If it was one person, one or two people, then we basically, by redefining the medical clinic definition of 3 or more providers, that meant that a single practitioner could come under the use of a professional office space. So that's the sort of thing that we did in these definitions.
And the town attorney had some recommendations around industrial, which seemed to be good. It was more like, don't define industrial this way, but have it be some sort of clarifying language.
Well,
Yeah.
the point was, we could call attention in the ballot question to the fact that light industrial, manufacturing, and light manufacturing are also kind of implicated in this change to industrial. But the simplest language, and it is accurate in my opinion, to just refer to industrial, because all those things were rolled into industrial. And then the standards, which were actually borrowed from Belfast in the end, after the ORC reviewed several possibilities. I wouldn't make a change there in how it's described.
One of the interesting things in our zoning ordinance is that we have only one industrial zone. It's the dump. That's the only industrial zone in town. But there are other so-called light industrial uses, which do show up in other places in town. So the clarifying of the definitions helped with that, too.
Okay.
Any further discussion on Article 4? If not, this is the vote to place it on the ballot as read. All in favor? Any opposed? 4-0 vote. Now recommendation here. All in favor of recommending for this article? Any against? That's a 4-0 recommendation. Okay, Article 5, Mr. Francomano.
Shall an ordinance entitled Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Land Use Ordinance at Section 917 to revise the uses for which a special exception is required in various zoning districts be enacted?
Have a motion to place?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 5 as read. Any discussion?
So I'm not going to go over all of it, but can you just give me a quick handle on how many changes are actually tied to this? Because scrolling through it, it seemed like there were a lot. And then maybe if you could go back into your mind palace, and as you've gone through all of these things, because you're probably going to say it's a good 30, 40 changes, how many of those would actually be substantive in nature, and how many of those are just really housekeeping type things?
I would say all of them have some substance to them, because in general, what they're doing is they're taking something that is currently a special exception, in other words, requires another public hearing just to make sure that the use is permitted at that location, and changes that to either permitted or prohibited. And about 35 out of 40, if you will, are changing them to P for permitted. And the others are going the other way. The Ordinance Review Committee is trying hard to reduce the number of special exceptions overall.
What about the
but,
conditional uses, though?
but there were,
That's just a change in terminology. Special exception and conditional use are the same.
You can use it, but we can put conditions on it.
that's
Yeah,
right.
it can be permitted, yes, permitted, no, or maybe. Maybe is the special exception, changing to conditional use.
And is there actually like a legit purpose for doing that?
Changing
Yes.
conditional use?
Yes.
Oh,
It-
boy.
That was the terminology that was used, I think, in many surrounding ordinances. Special exception was a terminology that was not used in very many ordinances at all.
We're getting
We'll,
away from it.
we'll get that in the very next article, Owen.
Okay.
And just as an example, and I have my list here from the ORC, in the hospital and resort district, hotels, motels, and inns were a special exception.
Right.
It seemed to make all the sense in the world to say, gee, in the resort district, we ought to permit them.
And that was more of my cleanup type
yeah.
stuff versus major
So
substantive.
It was a lot of that. And then there
I
was
see.
some things like,
Yeah.
in the downtown district, restaurants were a special exception.
There's,
We
there's
said
no
might as well
planning or
permit them.
comp planning impact to
Yeah.
them.
So it was mostly that sort of stuff. I want to say almost all. I don't think and we went through it, so.
And all the ones that when we were talking about this stuff previously, it seemed like when we had gone through, most of them were, they all made sense. It was just a good language cleanup, but I just haven't gone through all the tables and seen all of them yet.
Well, I'll make one final comment, and that's if you can get the ordinance review committee to agree on this stuff, then you're doing
going
pretty
places.
well. So, okay, any further comment on discussion on this article? If not, then the motion is to place for Article 5. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's a 4-0 vote. Now, recommendation vote. All who wish to vote for recommending this article?
Yeah.
Any against? Okay, that's a 4-0 vote. Okay, Article 6, please, Jamie.
Okay, and pardon me, Owen, I misspoke. It's Article 8 you're going to wait for to get the second half of that story.
Yes.
Article 6.
Thank you.
Shall an ordinance entitled, Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Land Use Ordinance at Sections 300 and 918 to revise the definition of congregate housing and to reduce the minimum lot area required per bedroom for this type of housing in various zoning districts be enacted.
Move to place Article 6 on the ballot as printed.
Second.
Moved and seconded into place. Any discussion?
Yeah. So what's up with the whole conversation around we're doing this for one? And I understand exactly that, but talk to me about the other areas in which this could be permitted. What other varying zones?
I'll talk about that a little bit, because the Ordinance Review Committee did look very carefully at making sure that we weren't looking at only one parcel for this, and looked at the rest of the zone and how it could impact the rest of the zone. And one of the conversations that came up was, we all support the mission of the hospitality house, but in 15 or 20 years, we don't know whether that particular entity will still be in place, and maybe there needs to be a homeless shelter someplace else in the zone. So we did look at that. As far as changing the definition to remove the word elderly, and Jamie, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think that that probably makes legal sense, because we can't necessarily discriminate against one type of housing or another in the Fair Housing Act or something
Well,
like
that's
that.
true. And I wonder if we can get that Section 917 table up here from before. If not, that's fine. Everybody can go back to the public hearing and see the video. But what you'll see is that congregate housing is being broken out from other types of residential uses. And so before, when they were all lumped together and treated the same, that was fine. But if you're going to take something out and treat it differently, it can't be discriminatory towards a protected class, such as the clientele of a homeless shelter or the elderly. So we did propose removing that word elderly, just because it didn't add anything to the definition. And to go over the point that comes up every year, and I think it's great that we have to have this discussion. A lot of good ideas that the Ordinance Review Committee has worked on certainly came from real-life examples where somebody figured out that there's a mismatch in the ordinance and can it be addressed. But in this example, including the next Article 7, the ORC was very expansive in looking at residential density generally. As far as congregate housing goes, they proposed to change the minimum lot area per dwelling unit in 3 different zoning districts. And as you'll see in the next article, the ORC found as they went along, multifamily housing with sewer, something was off with the density that didn't make sense and was limiting the diversity of housing opportunity in a way that the ORC recommended against. So here we have a thorough review of housing opportunity, and there's more the ORC could do, but definitely they did examine this proposal from the August Planning Board meeting that was withdrawn and involves the hospitality house specifically to evaluate how that would affect them. And the net result, for some people, this is all that matters in the vote, and that's understandable. But they had proposed 14 units, and if this passes, they could get 11.
How many can they get currently under our current ordinance?
Nobody knows. That's why the planning board got stuck. The hospitality house exists under a previous special exception that was granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals in around 1989 or 1990. It's had similar uses going back to the 70s. But the question with every special exception use is how far can it grow? So now that they want to expand capacity, the planning board would have to make a finding of how many units they have in the first place. And in that house with 9 bedrooms, there could be a maximum of 23 souls at one time. But there may be many fewer, and it's certainly not that many dwelling units. So one of the proposals is to bring, for congregate housing, bring that standard down to a more granular setting, which is bedrooms, not dwelling units, and to establish a maximum density per bedroom. So that it doesn't have a ceiling or a floor now. You know, I advise some of the members of the public who came out to the planning board meetings, you know, obviously I advertised that heavily because I knew we would have some input. That right now, this particular use and others can expand bit by bit and no one will know. But if we put something in the ordinance that allows the planning board to locate the ceiling and allows everybody in code enforcement and otherwise to find where's the limit, that would be perhaps an improvement for all concerned.
And I think my last question is, so one of the things that sets the applicant that has withdrawn in their dwellings is that there's like not cooking material. That's why you can call it a dwelling versus like a house.
Even I think that's a little far afield for.
Well, the nature of this question is, I like the concept of tiny houses as we look at, you know, workforce housing shortages, attainable housing shortages. What I'm curious about, does this open this up for the potential for not only the hospitality house to have non-cooking dwellings, but if someone came in and bought up some acreage and said we wanted to have a tiny house community and each house had its own cooking appliances and everything that would be within a home, is this change would also apply to them, or would we be
Actually,
basically
no.
doing another?
This is making it tighter. I came to the planning board in August. I don't like to get all the way to the public hearing for a site plan or subdivision matter without a path to the end. And I told the planning board, you have all the legal clearance to define these things as accessory structures. They aren't dwellings because they're missing some of the functions that a dwelling is defined as. But the planning board said that really doesn't smell right. We really are concerned, and we're going to refer to these as dwelling units. So, no, instead of opening this big loophole for accessory structures, for dwelling units in disguise, these are going to be treated as dwelling units, and that's why a new standard had to be included to the ordinance for maximum density.
And the question came up at the planning board too about, you know, what's the possible downside to this across the rest of the zone? And because of the way the square footage is put, you aren't going to be able to have somebody, for example, with a fairly small piece of property put in a institution that houses a lot of people, that has a lot of bedrooms, because you got to have the acreage to do it. Any further discussion on this particular article, Article 6? If not, this is a vote on placing the article on the ballot as read. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's a 4-0 vote. Now we need to recommend. All those in favor of recommending for Article 6?
Yeah.
Okay, any against? Okay, that's a 4-0 vote also.
Do you want us to go into recess while you review this stuff or something? You're obviously pretty uncomfortable with this.
It's
and
just-
What can we do to
I
improve the
well,
process?
I feel like I dropped the ball. So you get the packet, and I know that I only have a limited amount of time from getting the packet until the meeting. And so I've reviewed the packet. I mean, I didn't pick it up. I had it on my phone, and I read over it. And I was really hoping to get more robust information about these land use ordinance changes. And I'm not trying to place blame anywhere. I'm just frustrated that somehow I didn't acquire enough knowledge of this. I feel like previously when we've done this, we've had meetings before setting a recommendation where we kind of went over this stuff ad nauseum to feel comfortable. So by the time you get to the meeting where you're actually setting it, you kind of already know what you want to do. And so my own getting lost in all the stuff that I'm doing and not actively seeking this additional information out and just kind of assuming it was going to get deposited in my packet.
Yeah, well, I feel your pain, and, I understand where you're coming from. I guess
Compound it with the
My-
fact we don't
my-
even have recommendations.
yeah, my view is I'm not an expert on this stuff, and, sitting through the meetings with Jamie and the planning board and some of the ORC meetings and the harbor committee, it was an education for me, and I learned something. But again, I'm not an expert. But as I was sitting there as the select board liaison, I was comfortable that the process that these citizens of our town went through was complete enough that when the time came, I could support sort of what they came up with and not have to revisit each one. You're right, it might have been nice to have the recommendations here just to be the icing on the cake, but, our group of citizens put in a lot of time and a lot of work, and, in a lot of ways, who am I to, at this 11th hour, say, whoa, But, just my opinion, where the buck stops here, so.
Okay, let's move on to Article 7. Jamie, if you could read the ballot question there.
Shall an ordinance entitled, Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Land Use Ordinance at Section 918 by reducing the minimum lot area per dwelling unit for multifamily uses connected to public sewer to increase, be enacted. I can stop right there.
Move to place Article 7 on the ballot as printed.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place on the ballot. Discussion here?
All I'll say to close out that conversation with Doug is I agree with you. And even if I was able to watch the remaining 20 minutes or so of the live stream with the planning board, as you're finding too, sometimes when you actually vote is when it becomes final. So getting a feel for what they were talking about at that meeting, I didn't get the full feel, but also they weren't asked to vote. And it's atypical for us to, because I agree with you. I respect the work that they put in.
Can I
and
call the question so we can, I'm just trying
Well,
to,
let's let Owen finish his comment.
And, wanna definitely respect that. I don't have their recommendation, and that's just an odd thing.
Yeah, and that's, as I said at the beginning, that's
know.
an artifact of things. This one was really fixing mistakes, I think, more than anything. There were some situations where the numbers just didn't line up, and if there's sewer on the lot, then there's no reason not to encourage multifamily housing there, where the wastewater can be taken care of. Any further discussion on Article 7? If not, all in favor of placing on the warrant? Any opposed? That's a 4-0 vote. And we have to recommend on this one. All in favor of recommending 4 on this article? Any against? Okay, that's a 4-0 recommendation. Article 8, Jamie.
Article 8, shall an ordinance entitled Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Land Use Ordinance, deleting and replacing Section 703.3 Special Exceptions with a new Section 919 Conditional Uses, removing jurisdiction from the Zoning Board of Appeals to the Planning Board, simplifying criteria for approval, and minor revisions for consistency with these changes throughout the ordinance be enacted.
Move to place on the warrant as read.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion here? And this is,
I would,
Mark, go ahead.
I would just say that, I mean, the few meetings that I've been to with the planning, there was great explanation given by Will and probably one or two others as to why the SE, the special exception, needed to be changed. And I don't recall all the verbiage, but it made sense at the time.
And it's not changing anything really except the words. It's just changing the words to be more consistent with our ordinances in surrounding towns. A special exception becomes a conditional use. The more substantive change in this article actually is changing the jurisdiction
Yeah.
to the planning board.
And that was going to be my question. We had talked
Right.
about this. Is this that conversation about it? You don't have to stop off at so many boards and committees to get approval, especially when one basically can do all of it in one
Exactly.
sitting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly it. Any further discussion on this article?
And as I recall, both the zoning board of appeals and the planning board were totally cool with that change. as
I know of a
recall.
few alumni of the Zoning Board of Appeals who think it was good the way it was. But the real poster child for this is the town of Camden. The most famous recent lawsuit is called Bryant versus Town of Camden, where they had this setup where the Zoning Board of Appeals decides special exceptions. And this creates a situation where after the Zoning Board of Appeals says, yes, this use is appropriate for that location, we give you a special exception, now called conditional use. Then they needed a site plan approval from the planning board. So if the site plan approval is later appealed, the Zoning Board of Appeals is already blackballed from the situation because they've already gone public with their view, oh, this is a great place for that location. And that means the local options for appeal are exhausted, and immediately you're in the district court. And a number of other problems result from that. So this is a sort of a change that is basically being requested by the Chief Justice of the Maine Law Court in Camden's case, North Haven also.
We get out of the situation of the zoning board having to hear an appeal of an application that they've already weighed in on, which is really not a good idea, in my opinion. Okay, any further discussion? If not, voting on the motion to place here, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's a 4-0 vote. Recommendation, all in favor of recommending for this article? Any against? That's a 4-0 recommendation. Article 9, Jamie.
Article 9, shall an ordinance entitled, Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Land Use Ordinance, making minor corrections and clarifications throughout, be enacted. These are Scott's cleanups, if you recall.
Move to place Article 9 on the ballot as printed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion here? Yep.
So there are some notes from the town attorney on this one. Many references to special exemptions that appear that should now be replaced with conditional uses. And can I trust that those recommendations were followed through on?
Actually, they haven't been. The draft has not changed since we placed it with the town clerk on March 29th. But what the town attorney is recommending is very doable and will be in an updated packet later this week at the town clerk's office. So, for example, if you said in another chapter, if you need a special exception for this, but actually now it's called conditional use, the town attorney's saying,
That's on the prior article, though. That's under Article 8, not Article 9.
that's right.
Oh, and
But it's the
so
same
I was
type of thing.
confused. His
Oh, I see where you are.
the town attorneys, and I know you're right, because
His advice
he
there
has
is, this is
Article
messy.
9 on here. He misnumbered his thing,
Okay.
so I was reading.
You have handwritten arrows and circles and
Right.
what we need to put on file with Linda's office is not Scott's handwritten notes, but a proper track changes version like we've done with the other ones.
Right, no, and I'm sorry, he had 2 Article 9s on there, and I was
okay.
misinterpreting one of them.
Okay. Any further discussion on Article 9? If not, all in favor of placing on? Any opposed? 4-0. Recommendation vote, all 4. And any against, so that's a 4-0 recommendation. Okay, Article 10 is the harbor ordinance, and we have a copy of that, which was provided to us. It was not in the packet, but it is at our disposal this evening. Jamie, do you have the ballot question for that you could read?
Yes, I do. Shall an ordinance entitled, Ordinance Amending the Town of Rockport Coastal Waters and Harbor Ordinance, making a change to allow special exceptions from certain requirements upon a recommendation of the Harbor Committee and approval by the Select Board, and making minor revisions throughout, be enacted.
Move to place on the warrant as read.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion here?
I had one thing that, and I get it, I get portions of it, or at least I think I get it. So we've changed everything that says commercial fishermen's to commercial fishing, and I think I'm getting that we're not select men, we're select board members, and I get that, but the question is, in our town charter, I believe, is where we reference fishermen and fishing in the harbor as taking a higher priority. And so it just got me thinking, is there any direct kind of charter language tying fishermen to some of the things we say in the harbor are for fishermen? And by leaving it in the charter as fishermen and changing it to fishing, does that change anything? And I know that's a ridiculous question, but I'm just, I want the harbor to primarily be for the fishermen. And if we need to change the charter to reflect it not being just men, I don't want there to be any conflict there. Or
I
am
don't
just
see a
crazy?
conflict there.
Okay, good.
And if consistency with another document is required, it's the substance of it, not the language.
I mean, the guts of this is the special exception provision, which the Harbor Committee has worked on for a long time, over the last year or so, in dealing with a particular situation.
Plus, I think the clarification of the appeals process was considered an
Right.
important discussion.
Didn't they advise we sub in some language there too?
I don't know was there any other language from the town attorney here, Jamie, or was that
He
was
didn't
that
make a
appeals thing?
suggestion, he just said it's worthwhile to clarify that when an appeal reaches the select board, are they finding new facts, or are they examining the record that the Harbor Committee reviewed in making its recommendations? And that, I can see how that might come up if you had enough lawyers involved. It's worthwhile asking the select board, what do you prefer?
The way the special exceptions thing arose, I wasn't happy with, I will say. Just because of the fact that the ordinance was, or the rules were disobeyed, and the town's hand was somewhat forced here, I think. But I think that this is an improvement over what we were first presented with. I was not comfortable earlier with the Harbor Committee being placed in the position of being a quasi-judicial board. They didn't sign up for that. It's not in the charter or anything like that, and so the procedure that's been lined out here, any special exception the Harbor Committee will make a recommendation on, but the decision comes back to the select board to make. And I think that's an improvement over what we had before this.
I think I understand, so we've struck from definitions both non-resident and resident, which makes sense because you're picking that up in the fee schedule. So that seems to not be an interference with anything, and I'm sure you all have thought about that, but it just did seem interesting. Okay.
Any further discussion here? If not, all in favor of placing on the warrant as read? Any opposed? Okay, a 4-0 vote. Recommendation here, we ready for recommendation on this one? All in favor of voting for this article? Any against? Okay, that's a 4-0 vote. Okay. We now move on to, let me get my agenda here.
Article 11.
We're looking at
Article 11?
Article 11, which is, oh, okay.
That's the-
Are we going to skip over that one?
Unless, our council.
This is the LD1 article.
This is the LD1 article, and council said it is not necessary that it be included unless you do something to increase the budget numbers today, which I think is highly unlikely, that pushes us over LD1. Because right now, we're under LD1 by, how much are we under LD1 by? $1,200. So it's the article is unnecessary at this point?
Sneeze, anybody.
Solid difference. I definitely want to put it on, and from our conversations the other day, I think that it is better to have it prior to asking them for anything to lay out how it sets the tone for why the budget is the way that it is. It has that conversation about making hard cuts and where we put money back in prior to it. We inform folks that hopefully we don't have to do this. The budget we're presenting doesn't require it.
Will it be confusing to people?
Yeah, it's unnecessary. The recommendation of town council would be at the meeting, you'd just pass it over.
Unless you wanted to put more in it tonight. It
Right.
might be a long night.
He actually said you could take it off altogether.
He would take it off altogether.
My question earlier, and I asked Rick this earlier, is I was concerned that the LD1 calculation is a little bit of a moving target, and where we're so close that,
The LD1 calculation is a snapshot in time,
yeah.
and
But
it's
what's the
been-
time, I guess
it's
was my
been,
question.
we already have the LD1 calculation.
And that was
so-
my question earlier, is because I thought if things moved around a little bit, now at town meeting,
Right.
the voters can't increase any appropriation over what's in the articles, so they can't make it higher. So if we don't need this, I mean, I guess we can place it on the warrant if you like, and then vote, we can vote, not recommend passing it, or we can just leave it off. What's the board's pleasure here?
Another option would be to place it on and put it at the end, and you just pass it over at the end. If you wanted to do that.
I guess, and I could be convinced otherwise, but at some point at town meeting, we're gonna talk about LD1. I think that's a pretty fair statement. At some point in the conversation, when we talk about various things, a select board member, a town manager, the finance director, a member of the audience may bring up LD1. And I guess I just don't see the harm in, before we start talking about the numbers in the budget, addressing LD1 to just get it out of there, because it did guide and dictate a huge portion of our budget process. So I don't see the harm in
I'm
bringing it
guessing you
up.
have some inside information about somebody that may do that.
No, I'm just making an assumption. I think we
I'd
talked
be-
about.
Well, I think, the point is.
I'd be okay leaving it off
Taken,
myself.
we could leave it on. We do have to, and then I think on town meeting floor, it can be moved to pass over the article, even if it's on the warrant. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what town council's
Because keep in mind,
recommendation would be.
if this article has to be voted on, it has to be voted on by secret ballot. So that takes extra time at town meeting. That
And there's-
requires people stop and fill out a ballot and things of that nature, and then they have to be counted. So I'm okay with putting it on, and then, whether we pass over it or not, that'll be up to the town meeting floor.
Here's
to
maybe a
decide.
very quick example of, so when we get to the line where we're talking about road paving, or if someone looks at the public works budget, they've dove through it, we've got a lot of members in town that do that type of stuff. hey, I want to know why you didn't put the extra $50,000 into road paving. Well,
You
if
mean
I'm,
the-
if
the
I,
email we got today? I mean, I could explain that.
Did we
Because
get it?
it's still in infrastructure, it's just shifted to sidewalks instead of paving, in both of which is infrastructure, so.
and so that's what you would say at town meeting.
Right.
And when it came to be my portion of town meeting, I would probably talk about the fact that we were attempting to operate this budget within LD1 constraints. And if I'm someone sitting next to the person who's gone over the budget and watched every one of our meetings, they're gonna go, what's LD1? And so I just think it's highly likely that over the course of town meeting, we're gonna talk about LD1. And I didn't see the harm in talking about it before we go into why we made some of the decisions we made.
What was the recommendation again?
From town
Megan?
council?
Yeah,
That
from town council.
If we're not gonna be going over LD1, it's unnecessary to even have it on.
Are we going to be going over LD1?
No.
Okay.
Unless,
So
unless we change
unless
things
you
tonight.
change something
Right.
today and raise the budget,
Okay.
which I think is probably unlikely. I'm just guessing.
Might be a while to get to that one before we get down this one.
Well, do you want to pass over this for now, or?
Just as soon not, let's tackle it and get done.
Okay, well, I'll wait a motion.
I move that we not place Article 11 on the ballot as printed.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved on the warrant, not the
On
ballot. These are.
Well, it
this is,
says on the ballot, but maybe I misread it.
No, it should.
Oh, it does-
says
it
on the-
should
but
be on
It
warrant.
should be
It says
warrant. Everything
ballot
from
and
here forward
warrant.
should be warrant.
It should be warrant, yep.
So the motion is not to place. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Okay, that's a 3-1 vote. Actually, we do need to do our roll call on that because that's our law. So, Mr. Kelly,
Against,
No, four.
you're for the motion.
yes. Against placing it or for.
Mr. Casas,
Against.
Mr. Cole,
For.
and McKinley is for. Okay,
No,
so that will not be placed, so we don't have to make a
All right.
recommendation there.
perfect.
Okay, Article 12, and
Actually, 11, because you just deleted the one.
okay, well, what I'm gonna do I'm gonna keep them as their label on our
Right.
sheet now. We know that they'll be adjusted with time, but I'm not gonna try to remember to change these numbers as I go forward, so, please forgive me
Yeah, the numbering at this point is not,
Oh.
the
So
numbering
our
at this,
Article 12 numbers are different than the Article 11.
That's because she just changed it. to take it out.
Oh, and I thought everything moved up. Yep.
Linda, is your recommendation that we have to read these or not? In the past, we have always read these in entirety, and it takes a long time,
And we take turns.
and we take turns.
It's super fun.
I think the reason is because people at home can't see what you're voting on.
Okay. Well, then I guess we'll read them. We'll take turns. I'll take this one, article, and I'm going to preface this by saying that article numbers will change on the ballot itself because we have
On the
made a
warrant.
change on the warrant. Sorry. So Article
Cut and paste
12,
probably.
as we have it, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for general government for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, administration, $40,725. B, town manager, $321,760. C, town clerk, $232,980. D, planning and community development, $213,710. E, finance, $146,096. F, assessing, $228,102. G, town office building, $159,302. H, insurance, $72,128 for a total of $1,414,803.
Second.
Okay.
Moved.
Okay, it's,
Where were we
yeah,
at?
that's, I moved to place that on the warrant, and
Second.
you seconded. Any discussion on placing on the warrant?
Yes, I have an issue with F, assessing. As I've stated, I found the inconsistencies with the agreements that we have with Camden. We still don't have current signed. We don't know whether there's going to be a problem with them or not, so the numbers might not be accurate. And I would have really rather had those documents today prior to this, so I'd feel more comfortable about that particular portion of it.
Well, this is a plan. This is a budget moving
Well, there
forward.
was a plan to have those signed before today, too.
I thought
We
that
did our part.
I've signed my.
I know,
ours
but
out.
it's only a short drive over. I don't know whether,
Oh, we don't have both parties' signatures.
correct.
It's like a Stormy Daniels.
But
Donald
Camden
Trump
has theirs,
agreement.
their budget is the same thing, so they're,
No, I know, I just wouldn't feel quite as bad as if one of them that hadn't been done for a couple of years. I mean, that's what sort of makes me more adamant about having them done.
So noted.
Thank you. Move
Okay,
on.
any further discussion? Voting on the motion to place, all in favor? All against? Okay, 3-1. The article is placed. Okay, and now we have to recommend here. All in favor of recommending for the passage of this article? And against? It's a 3-1 recommendation for.
Do you have to do the yeas and nays?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I wasn't gonna let him get away with it.
It's, okay.
You want your moment in the spotlight.
Just saying.
Gonna make the
Okay, yeah,
paper.
we have to go back and do the yeas and nays for that, I'm sorry. So on the motion to place, Mr. Kelly,
Against.
Mr. Casas?
For.
Cool, 4, McKinley is 4. On the recommendation, Mr. Kelly?
Against.
Casas?
For.
For.
4, McKinley 4, okay, 3-1. Article 13, moving to place on the ballot to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for public assistance for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, general assistance, $27,145 for a total of $27,145.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place on the ballot. Any discussion on Article 13? or what
Place
we'll
on the
call-
warrant.
Place on the warrant. This is a long night.
yeah.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? No, 4-0. Recommending, all recommending for? Any recommending against? 4-0 there.
I'll take it from there.
You're gonna do the next one?
Sure, why not?
I'll take 15, because 15 is short.
Okay. Article 14 is currently labeled by us to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for public safety for the 2018/2019 fiscal year. A, Police Department, $631,563. B, Fire Department, $500,728. C, West Rockport Fire Station, $5,519. D, Other Public Safety Services, $318,567. E, Animal Control, $5,349. F, Harbor Master, $173,760. G, Public Safety Building, $34,755. H, Emergency Management, $3,060. Total, $1,673,301. I move to place Article 14 as currently listed on the warrant as printed.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place on the warrant. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? No, 4-0 vote. Recommendation, all recommending for this article? Any recommending against? That's a 4-0 vote. Article 15.
Article 15 reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for public works for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, Public Works, $1,739,231. B, Sanitation, $161,141. Total, $1,900,372.
Second. Moved and seconded to place on the warrant. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? 4-0 vote. Recommendation, recommending for, all recommending for? Recommending against? Okay, we need to call the roll on that one. Mr. Kelly?
No, I had it up too long, sorry. I had it up 4.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, but he voted against.
I voted against.
4.
4. Mr.
Against.
Casas, against? That's
4.
4, and McKinley is 4. So that's a 3-1 recommendation on Article 15.
Number 16, as listed, to see if the town will vote and raise and appropriate the following for culture and recreation for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, library, $436,852. B, Conservation Commission, $9,041. C, Parks, $55,810. D, Opera House, $115,325. E, Library Building at 1 Lime Rock, $2,851. F, Recreation, $54,950, totaling $674,829.
Second.
Moved and by Mark, seconded by Owen to place on the ballot. Any discussion on this article? If not, all in favor of placing? Any opposed? 4-0. A recommendation vote. Those recommending for? Any recommending against? 4-0 recommendation. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for long-term debt, parentheses, debt payments for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, debt, $172,905 for a total of $172,905. Move to place on the warrant as read.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this article? If not, all in favor? Any against? 4-0 vote. Recommendation on this article, all recommending for. Any recommending against? Okay, that's a 4-0 vote also.
Article 18 as written, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for county fees for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, county service E911, $65,984. B, county service dispatch, $32,512. Total, $98,496. I move to place Article 18 as written on the warrant as read.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mark got the second. I'll give it to Mark.
Totally works.
Any discussion on this article placing? All those in favor of
Well,
placing?
no, but
Sorry.
except when Doug said, it did sound, wouldn't it sound better as county dispatch services versus service dispatch?
It's just the way it's written.
No.
It's county service, comma, E911, county service dispatch. All in favor of placing Article 18?
No commas.
Okay, 4-0 vote there. Recommendation here, all recommending for. Any recommending against? Okay.
I move to place Article 19 on the ballot as printed, and it reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for cemeteries and special assessments for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, cemeteries, $75,708. B, special assessments, $6,800 for a total of $82,508.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Recommendation, all recommending for. Any recommending against? 4-0 vote there.
Number 20 is written, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following for provider agencies for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, provider agencies, $3,500, totaling $3,500.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 20. Any discussion here? All in favor of placing? 4-0 vote. Recommendation, all recommending for. Any recommending against? 4-0 vote there.
Are you guys serious? Oh, wait, no, okay, it was part of a negotiation. Because I just remember that was your time to shine, because you could recommend against it.
Article 21, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the
That was
following
your
as revenue
time.
from the following sources to be used in reducing the property tax assessment for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. A, general government, $1,105,191. B, public assistance, $12,880. C, public safety, $279,753. D, public works, $81,450. E, culture and recreation, $114,859. F, all other dash cemeteries, $5,350. G, unassigned fund balance, $345,765. H, special assessments, $127,000, for a total of $2,072.
Nope.
$2,072,248.
Second.
You get it?
That was a lot of numbers.
Okay, but moved and seconded to place Article 21. Any discussion here? All in favor? Any opposed? Recommendation, all recommending for. Recommending against, 4-0 votes.
Article 22.
The housekeeping articles now.
Move to place Article 22 on the ballot. Article 22 reads, to see if the town will vote to authorize the transfer of all unexpended balances to fund balance and to authorize the overdrafts that may occur in the town operations in the 2018-2019 budget to be taken from fund balance.
Moved. I'll second. Second. Okay. Moved and seconded to place Article 22. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? 4-0. Recommending? All recommending for. Any recommending against? 4-0.
Article 23, I move to place Article 23 on the warrant as read, to see if the town will vote to authorize the payment of tax abatements and applicable interest from the property tax overlay account.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 23. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? 4-0. Recommendation? All recommending for. Any recommending against? 4-0 vote there.
Article 24 is written to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board on behalf of the town to sell and dispose of any real estate acquired by the town for non-payment of taxes thereon on such terms as they deem advisable, and to execute quitclaim deeds for the property. The sale or disposal shall be made only after consultation with the planning board and the Conservation Commission, except for the purpose of clearing title or of reconveyance of real estate to the original owner, or, in the case of timeshare units, reconveyance back to the original owner, or the Timeshare Estates Association of unit owners, property to be disposed of by written policy and on terms the select board deem advisable.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 24. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, recommendations, all recommending for. Anybody recommending against? 4-0 on both of those votes. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board on behalf of the town to sell and dispose of any real estate acquired by the town for non-payment of wastewater thereon on such terms as they may deem advisable, and to execute quitclaim deeds for the property. The sale or disposal shall be made only after consultation with the planning board and the Conservation Commission, except for the purpose of clearing title or of reconveyance of real estate to the original owner. Property to be disposed of by written policy and on terms the select board deem advisable.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 25. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Sounds like when you used to do the weather forecast on the radio.
Recommendation votes here, all recommending for. Any recommending against? Okay, 4-0 vote there as well.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes?
Don't we do quitclaim deeds for property tax stuff? And yet in Article 24, we don't say quitclaim deed.
It's there, in both of them.
Where? Quitclaim. Quitclaim, thank you. Eyeballs.
I move to place
Eyeballs.
I move to place Article 26 on the warrant as read. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to set October 15th.
Hang on a second.
Am I missing
You
something?
skipped Article 22.
Article 22 is back of
Wait a minute, oh, did I go the wrong way? Never mind. No, sorry, you were right. Sorry.
Eyeballs.
I turned my page
Article
the wrong way.
26 reads, to see if the town will vote to set October 15th, 2018, and April 15th, 2019 as the tax installment due dates.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to place this on the warrant. Any discussion? My only question is, have we checked to make sure that these aren't Sundays or holidays?
That's what I was just thinking, but
Okay, so we have to, okay, so it has been checked. Okay, I
Yeah.
take your word for it. Okay, all in favor?
that's why we have the pros.
Any opposed? 4-0. Recommending for? Recommending against? 4-0 for.
So I'm going to read Article 27, but can I ask a question first? Should April 15th still be April 15th, or should it be the 16th?
No, it should be the 16th, I believe. Is
Okay.
that right, Megan?
Oh, the 6th.
It should be the 16th, because I believe the 15th will be Patriots' Day.
Well,
Well, no, it's the
gonna-
interest starts on the next day. We better check these dates.
Well, the 15th is Patriots' Day, and town office is
Article
closed.
26 is the 16th?
should have been read April 16th.
2019?
We can set it whatever we want to be, and I'd say we'll set it on the 16th.
The interest should start the day after each due
Right, but we
Right.
have to do Article 26 over again then. If
27 over.
I know, but Linda just said it was Patriots Day.
we just did, we just did the installment due dates. And if April 15th is a holiday, we can't have that,
Isn't that Patriots Day?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
so we can't have that as a due date.
So
Yeah,
then
I
it would be
said
the
April
16th
16th.
and then the
Oh, you did?
17th?
Well, yeah.
17th
Okay.
would be the interesting.
Yeah, Dr. Coles has advised me that he said April 16th in his motion, so we're all set.
People may have misunderstood.
And mine's gonna be the 17th.
Right.
Okay, so Article 27, move to place it on the ballot, and it reads, to see if the town will vote to set October 16th, 2018, and April 17th, 2019 as the tax delinquency dates, and to fix the rate of interest on delinquent taxes at 7% interest per year.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Quick discussion, how do we come up with the 7%?
It's the state's
State.
maximum.
Ah, thank you, okay.
I used to ask that from the town floor, from the town meeting floor, yes. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? No, okay. And the recommendation, all recommending for. Any recommending against? 4-0 vote there. Okay, Article 28, to see if the town will vote to fix the rate of interest on delinquent wastewater charges at 7% interest per year. Vote to move to place on the warrant as read.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion here? All in favor? Any opposed? Recommending for? All recommending for? Any recommending against? Okay.
Article
Nothing vote there.
29, I move to place Article 29 on the warrant as read, to see if the town will authorize the Select Board and Treasurer on behalf of the town to accept gifts, real estate, and certain funds, including trust funds, that may be given or left to the town.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 29. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? 4-0. Recommending for? Recommending against? Okay, 4-0, recommending for.
Article 30 is written, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to accept those conservation easements which the Select Board deem appropriate in the name of the town of Rockport, provided, however, said conservation easements are first considered by the Rockport Conservation Commission and Planning Board.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 30. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? 4-0. Recommending, recommendation for? Any recommending against? 4-0 there.
Article 31, I move to place on the ballot, and it reads, to see if the town will authorize the treasurer to waive the floor closure of tax lien mortgages pursuant to 36 MRSA, Section 944, upon a finding by the Select Board that ownership of the property subject to the lien would be contrary to the town's best interest.
Second.
Moved and seconded to place Article 31. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Recommendations, recommending for, recommending against, 4-0 there. That's the rifle range article.
Oh.
Article 32, to see if the town will authorize the Select Board to enter into boundary line agreements with abutting property owners to establish the boundary line of any property of the town, including the boundary lines of the rights of way of roads. Move to place that on the warrant as read.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded to place Article 32. Any discussion?
Have we ever done this since I've been on?
No.
No, we've not had to do it.
But you have to have it there just in case.
But I thought most of the disputes were settled in one of our quasi-judicial boards.
No, this is, that wouldn't be, this is a separate case, and it's unlikely to happen. We don't have any ill-defined property lines in town, I don't believe. But it might come up, for example, if let's say a property stayed in one family for like 200 years or something, and the deed says, well, the property along the creek, that runs up to the stone wall or whatever, and the creek and the stone wall aren't there anymore, then it would be the Select Board to get in there and make a determination, probably with the help of the assessor to help us, but we would have to make the determination.
All right, thank you.
All in favor of placing Article 32? Okay, 4-0. Recommendation, all recommending for. Any recommending against, 4-0 there. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to enter into a standard agreement with taxpayers establishing a tax club payment plan for commercial and/or residential real estate property taxes, whereby, 1, the taxpayer agrees to pay specified monthly payments to the town based on his or her estimated and actual tax obligation for current year real estate property taxes. 2, the town agrees not to charge interest on timely payments made pursuant to the tax club agreement. 3, the town authorizes the collector to accept tax club payments for current year taxes which may be due prior to the commitment of those taxes. 4, the agreement is automatically terminated if a scheduled payment is late, and the taxpayer then becomes subject to the same due dates and interest dates and rate as other taxpayers who are not participating in the tax club. 5, only taxpayers who do not have outstanding tax obligations for prior tax years are eligible to participate in the tax club program. And 6, taxpayers wishing to participate in the tax club for a particular property tax year shall enter an agreement with the town by a publicly advertised deadline determined by the tax collector. Move to place on the warrant as read.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? 4-0 vote. Recommendation, recommending for. Recommending against, 4-0 recommendation there.
Can I ask a question, again, sort of a newcomer? Considering it's the 21st century and probably 90% of our townspeople have access to the World Wide Web, could we ask our town manager for next year to look into if there's a way to streamline these sort of standard warrants that show up year after year, so that we don't need to go through?
Yeah, I think it's worth a discussion. It's certainly worth looking into.
Would you do that?
Wait,
Thank you.
I'm confused by the nature of the question. Because I guess I thought some of the stuff that we did, it's almost like compelled by state law to do it annually.
I think that's what we're asking them to look into.
Yeah.
Just, you
Right,
know,
that's
I-
the question.
okay.
can we find
Yeah,
some
is there
way
a
to?
different way to accomplish
Yeah.
the same end?
Right.
And I guess I was just thinking it's probably less digital competency than changing state law, potentially.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's worth looking into.
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
I don't
worth
think
looking
state
into.
law says that we need to sit and read every word in the warrants, I'll bet. I'll bet it says it needs to be publicly available or something, but we'll let our town manager look
I think it's
into
worth
that.
looking into. Okay, moving on here. I gotta catch up to the agenda.
Where are we?
We
Can't
have
wait
to.
get-
Getting there.
We need a
We're
pizza.
getting there.
Yeah, where's the pizza
We need
guy?
a brick oven pizza.
You didn't bring us any pizza?
The next item is
Could've
to
been
vote to
viewed-
set the town meeting
viewed
times as
badly.
stated in the first paragraph, the June 2018 town warrant. There's the motion.
What was the motion?
I move to set the town meeting dates and times as the Tuesday, June 12th, 2018, at 8:00 a.m. until 8:00 p.m., during which time the polls will be open to vote on Articles 1 through,
The number right?
It should be, no, the
One
ones on the
less.
ballot, it should be 10, I think. Yeah,
1
it's
through
10.
10 by
You don't
ballot.
vote on the ballot, number one.
Oh,
Huh?
it should be 2, was it 3 through 10, Linda?
Well,
Because 1 is,
they
Elect a
do- I
moderator.
guess they do vote on it, but that's not on the ballot. As long as you don't say on the ballot, they do vote on Article 1.
There's Article
Article 1 and Article 2.
And
Article
then
2 is on the ballot. I think that's 1 through 10 is okay.
1 through 10, period. The meeting will adjourn after the polls close. The adjourned meeting will be reopened the following day on Wednesday, June 13th, 2018, at 7:00 p.m. at the famed Rockport Opera House to act on the remaining articles in the warrant in the open town meeting format.
Have a
Second.
motion and have a second. Any discussion on this motion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's a 4-0 vote. Okay, the next one is to vote to sign the budget validation referendum, and from what I understand, we have only the CSD warrant. I can find it here. Is that correct, Linda? We have only the CSD warrant tonight? Okay. And we don't have to read that whole thing. We have to vote to sign it. So I
And would you explain to me again what the budget validation referendum is?
That's the school budget process. The school budget proposes a budget.
Right.
They have public meetings where they take input on that budget from people, and then they can choose to revise that budget based on their public meetings, and then that budget is what gets presented to the voters. So this budget validation basically is saying, okay, we accept what they've done through their process and we put it on the ballot.
Okay, and
I
that's,
think I'm explaining that correctly.
That budget meeting is May the 22nd. The SAD will be at 6 o'clock and the CSD will be at 7 o'clock at the high school.
oh, so it hasn't occurred yet.
No,
The other one hasn't.
Oh, well, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
So should we,
they've been doing this for a few years now. So they do this at the high school and go through the budget. And people can't even vote on the validation one until after this has been voted on. They cannot cast their absentee ballot until afterwards.
oh, the one, so I guess the question is, should we be voting on that tonight? We have it here, actually.
Yes, because it's just to, it's for the budget meeting to be held on May 22nd is what you're voting on.
Okay.
For the budget meeting to be held, because the way Ken explained it, he made it sound like the meeting had already been held and
thought
there
it-
was
yeah, I
public
thought it was.
input, and so,
Yeah.
That's their process. There is
Okay.
public input, but I
so
guess.
we're
we-
just authorizing the meeting.
I think we've got a resident expert that wants to.
Yeah, so basically, the ballot, the written ballot just says, it has no number on it. And what it says is, do you approve the amount that the school board, in conjunction with everybody who came to Strom Auditorium, voted on a week ago?
So
That's basically what the ballot says. All you're doing right now is voting on the process, which is a state process. We had a decision about 5 years ago to go one way or the other, and the school board went this particular way.
So what, again, what am I going to be asked to vote on here?
Process. You're saying, go ahead and hold that vote.
And we don't know what the number is, because,
Nobody does.
so it's a blank check we're authorizing.
You're not recommending anything, you're just saying that the
All we're saying is
process-
put it on the ballot.
Whatever number they put in there.
Right.
On that meeting, yeah.
And the way I've understood this in the past, we don't really have, I mean, if we vote no on this, it's gonna go on the ballot anyway, but,
That's not a,
Well,
I think.
Once they have the ballot, the budget meeting, they give all the clerks a piece of paper that have all of these articles on it and the dollar amount, what it is. So you'll know the dollar amount of what you're voting on when you come to the polls. It will be posted.
But I guess the question is, do we have to vote on this, or should we vote on this tonight?
Yes, you should.
I'm not so sure I like
With,
that.
without,
Or you can hold it until they get the SAD 28 if you choose. If you don't want to
the
sign
May
one
meeting.
tonight, sign them both at the same time, that's your choice.
But it doesn't impact how you get the ballots ready or anything like that?
My ballots will be ready to go.
But what we do tonight, I'm saying, doesn't
will not
doesn't
affect it.
impact that.
No.
Well, quite honestly, I guess I'm,
Table it until we have them both?
Yeah,
what's the board's pleasure?
I mean, I would rather have them both. I mean, I don't like to, I know it's how it's
Okay.
always been done, but
Well,
Well, we
actually,
don't
no,
have
it's
them
only
both,
been
so-
for the past.
5 or 6 years.
That's the process.
Of-
And the
of
other
late,
alternative that could have been chosen was, instead of having the in-person meeting at the Strom Auditorium, all the numbers are just on a paper ballot. People go in and say yes or no.
If I remember correctly, it looked more like what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, you
As a
used to vote
process.
on every line at the polls. Now you just vote yes or no on the budget as a whole.
Correct.
And I gotta tell you, having been one of the maybe dozen people that were at the Strom Auditorium to vote on it, it's not a robust turnout.
The reason I think they
Voting
changed is
to
because
approve.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of articles.
Yeah, I
there.
think my vote went with at least $1 million.
Well, if we don't have them both, if the board wants to wait till next month, as long as we're okay and we're within statute to do that, then I think that's fine.
and it doesn't interfere with Linda's April 13th
Right.
deadline.
No. No, I already have the school has already sent me the question that will be on the ballot. And it has nothing to do with this one, so if you don't sign it, it's okay.
Okay.
And can I also make the assumption that, like, by tomorrow or the day after, if for some reason us doing this makes the school all in a huffy tizzy, we'll find out about it?
Right.
Yeah.
But the SAD 28th meeting isn't even until Wednesday or Thursday evening, so they
Yeah.
don't even have a.
Well, let's
budget
wait
yet.
till we get them both then. I think that makes sense.
it looks like we're just authorizing the.
Yeah, that's all it is
Call the
authorizing,
budget
yeah.
meeting.
Table it until
Till May.
May.
We can sign it then. Okay.
Finally.
Next item is, thank you for your patience, is to consider the proposal for a mobile food truck at the harbor. So we'll wake up the members of the audience who are still here. And Abby, if you'd like to come up, maybe give us a quick summary of the proposal and your thoughts on it. We have your notes, which are good, but.
I had been since Fox on the Run is no longer there. That was the food truck that has been there for 4 years before now. Over the winter, I had been sort of soliciting, and I have very small circles of food service. And Bobby had come. Bobby has a mooring in the harbor, and he had come in, and we started kind of talking about it. And he had mentioned that the idea of having this mobile pizza oven, but wood-fired oven. He can get more into the specifics of it. But I would love to have something there, and this is a great opportunity to have. It's a fully sustainable truck, so we don't have to worry about power. So we can kind of put him. We can experiment with locations, and it really does seem like a great fit. He's right up the road. He's got a great reputation with flatbread and the food service industry for years. So I think it's will be a great opportunity for us.
Anybody have any questions for Abby?
I got one quick question. What do you think about repurposing the lime kilns
I've always thought that.
for pizza?
For-
How many pizzas could you stack
Right?
into that?
The 8-foot pizza.
Yeah.
So
All right, I'm good. I just had
Where-
to get that off my chest.
where were you gonna position?
So I don't know. I think you were still on the board when we were talking about adding the other power pedestal to put Fox on the Run when there was some heartburn about her location
On the
Where,
lawn.
well, on the, yeah. So against the hill by the train, so that the line could be. We may have to reposition one of the picnic kiosks.
Isn't that where the handicap spot is?
No, we wouldn't take any. We wouldn't need to take any parking over there. There's enough lawn there that we could try to work with that, and not having to add the additional power pedestal is a huge plus for that.
Is there a wood fire in the truck?
Yeah, yeah. Talk
If
to
you
yeah.
could come up, that'd be great.
I've seen them before. They're wicked cool. It's all in a trailer.
Yeah, I gotta.
Okay, yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
Oh, yours is different. Ooh.
This is gonna be a school
Okay.
bus, so it's not gonna be on a trailer. It's gonna be right
So
in
you're
the
gonna put
Right.
a fire in a school bus.
Exactly, yeah.
Living on the
Seatbelts or no seatbelts?
Okay.
Is this removed daily?
retired
Oh, yeah.
school bus.
Well, it won't stay down there.
Have we had the fire chief comment on this at all?
We haven't.
And should we?
He'll have to go through all
I'm
of
gonna
his
have to have it inspected, you know.
fire marshal stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a great idea, but.
Yeah,
I just wanna
sure,
make
absolutely.
Are you gonna be serving anything else other than pizza?
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of, burritos, tacos.
What,
Okay.
Oh,
what
You
type
sold
of,
me.
Oh, I'm sorry, burritos, tacos.
sounded better all the time.
Yeah.
what type of insurances do we require of someone doing that? Or should we, or have we?
We require
R-
criminal liability.
Right, yeah. Right,
For all pet, because
Well, I'll be insured
Peddlers.
for,
You-
I'll have.
right.
you're considered,
comp.
I
for
mean,
the
you-
purposes of this, it's a peddler's license.
itinerant peddler.
And there's certain,
I mean,
Because
you-
it's operated on town property, we would have to have proof of liability and workers' comp.
Which he already has
Don't
through
we have-
the, through his business.
Yes.
I know, but I'm asking, because Linda's right here. Don't we ask like $1 million coverage for other people that use town properties? Liquor liabilities.
But he's
Okay,
not
so
gonna
we're not
serve it.
doing liquor liabilities, all right. I knew there was a dollar factor, I just couldn't remember which.
We still require $1 million.
Yeah, it would be.
All right.
Still, would still have.
I have a general question, and it doesn't have to do with Bobby or Abby, because I think it's a fine idea, and I know this was discussed previously with Fox Run or whatever, Fox on the Run. But, so Bobby comes down, sets up his truck, and then, 5 other food trucks decide to come down. How has that been handled? What did we decide as a select board before I was on the select board?
Well, I mean, we have to grant the peddler's license, and I think in general, we would look at it and, you know, if another pizza truck wanted to come down there, then that wouldn't make a lot of sense. But if another truck wanted to come down there, and it would be up to Abby and the Harbor Committee, I think, to make a recommendation based on space available and compatibility with the issues that are down there.
So let's just say hypothetically, next year, 2 people come. How do you resolve that?
I would look to the Harbor Committee for a recommendation to say, can these 2 people coexist, or?
I think we need to, I'm all for this,
Yeah,
let's
no,
do it.
I'm good, but I
But
just wanna-
going forward, I think we ought to spell this out a little bit more clearly before it becomes an issue, because food trucks are getting very popular. You know, you go to Portland, Oregon, they're everywhere. So
Yeah.
just, let's do this tonight, let him in, but again, it's something I think
it
we
would-
need to have a policy going
It would be a
forward.
good problem to have, that we had several food trucks, and it may be that in many communities that have several food trucks, they have different locations for the food trucks to go, and they rotate from position to position, and it wouldn't hurt us to have, you know, a couple food trucks that were sharing the 7 days and alternated back and forth, and they had different locations they worked.
Put that on the Harbor Committee's to-do
Yeah.
list, for the harbor specifically. And also, I've had actually inquiries about food trucks in other parts of town. We may want to
Oh,
look
have
at
you?
that.
That's why I think we ought to
Oh,
look
really?
at this.
That
yeah.
would be a land use ordinance issue, I
Oh,
think, is, you know,
yeah.
where can we permit a food truck to set up and
Well,
operate?
I know they've sold 2 in the past. The Dukes had a place on the other side of the harbor, and then there was
Yeah.
one on the harbor master's side.
Okay.
What do-
The fourth that I've seen, the fourth
Yeah.
sort of rendition of something.
Well,
What
let's
do we
nail this
consider
down
the,
and then
what do
talk.
we consider the Grafham's trailer right across? and
Oh,
then it's
the shack? I don't know what they're, I mean, they're an approved use, but I don't know what it's, I seem to remember them applying for an itinerant peddler permit at one point since I've been on the board, but I don't know whether they've done it every year or what the story
Not
is
even
there.
sitting there now, or it wasn't.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
take
they
it away
move
in the winter.
Yeah, they move it.
They take it away in the
Thank
winter.
you for bringing this to our attention. We'll take care of you tonight. Look into
Are
it
there
going
any, are
forward.
there any monetary compensations for
Peddler?
Yes.
the use of the property?
I forget what the fee is. Do you remember?
Considered an itinerant peddler, which is a fee, one fee, and then through the rental, the park rental fee, it's $100 a month fee plus power and water, but won't be
Not
using
gonna
power.
re-
and
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll need water.
I will have a water, it'll be all on board.
put out the
We'll have
fire.
a water tank on board.
Wait, we'll be prepared.
Okay.
Thank you.
Put out the fire.
Drive it right into the harbor.
Hopefully I won't have to do that.
Hopefully not.
Okay.
So what do we do, make a motion? Oh, sorry. I move to approve the permit application for Robert Morgan to operate his food truck for the 2018 season.
Have a motion?
Do we have to be any more specific than that?
We could put itinerant peddler permit.
I mean, I'm cool with that, but I just.
Let's
it
put
seems
itinerant peddler, we'll insert itinerant peddler permit, since that's what the application that we have is.
Okay.
So, you got that motion, Linda? Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I think it's great to have a local business down there, and I just want to say that Flatbread does a lot for the community, and I pay attention to that, and I appreciate it, so it's, I think.
Thank
it's- I think it's great.
Flatbread has supported roadside cleanup with
Yeah.
food.
Many
Keep Rockport
organizations,
Beautiful
and
with
so-
food. Thank you very much.
To have them extended down to the harbor, I think is terrific.
Good, great.
All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? None, okay.
Let's not lose sight of that, though.
You tracked me down to give me free pizzas.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Whoa, whoa,
No, it was for Keep Rockport Beautiful.
Wait a minute.
They appreciated the cleanup effort so much.
Conflict of
He
interest.
tracked me down, and I immediately handed it over to Keep Rockport Beautiful, and we used some of it to feed inmates when they did roadside cleanup.
Okay, we have 2 quitclaim deeds here to deal with. Thank you. Waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, he got tired of waiting?
You got tired of waiting. Linda, do you want to explain these real quickly? The quitclaim deeds? I think they're
Or Megan, I think
wastewater.
Megan,
They're sewer liens.
Oh,
they're
okay.
not
Megan
So they're
worked
not
on
yours,
those.
sorry.
state.
basically, it's I mean, Megan can explain more detail, but there's 2 quitclaim deeds, and they're for a sewer issue that was cleared up many years ago, but never was cleared up on our records.
So in 2010, there were 2 sewer liens put on a particular property. They were never properly discharged after the payment agreement was set up for said owner to pay back sewer liens, and when they had done that, the liens were never discharged. The last group of discharges you got, we went back as far as 2014 to make sure that we got them all. I wouldn't have expected that one from 2010 was still outstanding. Since this one came up, we will be going back to about 2007 to make sure all liens that were put on have been appropriately discharged,
So this is house cleaning, basically.
pretty much.
And it came
And this
up,
is so they could sell the
it
property.
came up as
is
a
how it
result
came
of a
up.
title search.
Oh, okay.
So, does it make any difference if Tom is still listed on there?
Oh, I remember seeing that.
We'll just
too.
scratch it out, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
We
for
have
catching
copies
that.
we have to
It's in-
sign
I think
over
it's on
here.
the bottom too, but his name's
But
not
his not a
listed to
signature
sign.
line for
Yeah.
him. Okay, can I have a motion on this?
So moved. I move to approve the quitclaim deeds on the property map 20, lot 129, under 2010 tax liens book 4317, pages 185 and 186.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's a 4-0 vote. Okay. The next item is to set a date for the annual performance review of the town manager. I have,
Wasn't,
No, there's two of them, two quick.
oh, is there another quick claim
There's
deed?
another quick-
no, it's a appointment of the
Yep.
list of election clerk.
Yeah, there are 2 quick claim
Oh,
deeds.
and I'm sorry, I went ahead too.
Yeah, but did we need another motion for that, or did we get them both in that one?
I,
I thought we had 2 of them.
I read to move and approve the
20.
quitclaim deeds on the property map 20, lot 129, under 2010 tax lien book 5317, pages 185 and 186.
That's both
That's
of
for
them.
the 2.
All right, okay. Yeah, I think we're okay then.
And then, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Yeah.
So set a date for the annual performance review of the town manager. I have tonight, which I will hand out, forms, and some of them we've used before, to evaluate the town manager. I am gonna be away the week that bridges April and May. So from April, whatever it is, 29th
29th
until
is
May,
Sunday.
till May 7th. I won't be back until that Monday. So what I'm gonna suggest, I will hand out the evaluation forms that we use along with the goals. And if those could be turned in by April 27th, which is the Friday before I leave, then I will be able to work on them while I'm away, get them all tabulated, and then we can set a date after that, when I get back sometime in early May, to schedule an executive session for the town manager review.
April 27th, early May.
So it'd be May 8th would be the earliest date that I could do it, and then
Yeah, I
soon,
think-
soon thereafter as possible would be good.
somewhere in the middle of the month, in the middle of that week, I'm gonna be heading to New York. Maybe the 9th or 10th for that weekend.
Oh, right, I may
through the
be gone
13th.
that for reunion too that week.
That whole week?
Well, no, it'll probably
Megan.
be, I'll probably leave May 9th.
So does May 8th work for people?
My biggest thing is with the Augusta, but we're supposed to be adjourning April 18th. So I should be
Okay.
pretty flexible.
Well, let's set the date for May 8th, if that's okay, and then we can leave the time open right now and see what your schedule is, and you know, if we can,
If we're still in May 8th,
Oh, you're in trouble.
we're already nipping at each other.
but let's,
May 8th, okay.
let's try May 8th, and maybe late afternoon or something like that, if we can all make it.
Quick question, when you send this to me, is it gonna have employee management on it?
Yes.
Okay, I object to having to give a number ranking to something that I am kind of barred from knowing anything about. I brought this up when we did this before. It's, there are distinct, we have one employee and it's the town manager, and there is a distinct barrier between us and all the employees that the town manager manages.
I'm not familiar with the form we're talking
Well,
about.
it's, we really shouldn't
1
talk
through
about it in
4.
open session. It's,
Well, any form that you use, just as, I'm assuming, is just a starting point for a discussion.
yeah, it is. And if you're not comfortable with, doing it,
don't
you
fill it
can skip
out or-
that section if you so choose, or you can make some comments or whatever.
Is there an other box? Other, rather than whatever you,
Other comments?
It was more just the general question that's being asked. It's not the whole 1 through 4 or other, it's that I'm being asked to rate the town manager on something I'm not supposed to really know much about.
It's a conundrum, there's no question about it. Because the charter prevents us from, getting into employee issues or whatever. And in the past, what we've done is basically our observations without talking to people, and it's imperfect, I agree.
Just fine.
Yeah, I don't see putting a number on it, but I'm certainly open to just sitting
Well,
and
there is a
saying-
number there, and some people in the past have had trouble with numbers. For me, the number helps me to sort of hone in on what comments I want to make, but the comments are the most important thing, and we can collect all the comments.
Well,
and
that's-
then-
Just, some things are wicked simple, like we put a priority on the library, right?
Right,
And
yeah,
so
we'll have
we've
the
got a
goals and we'll
really
deal with
good,
that, yeah.
easy way to, yeah, I think that you fell a little bit short, so I gave you a 3, or, you were awesome, so I gave you a 4. But with that one specifically, there's it's just a conundrum, as you
how
said.
do,
a conundrum,
how do 3 people that put a 2 down for something and one person that puts a 5, how do you,
We just, we're not,
I'm
we're
saying,
not.
okay, I'm giving an example.
Yeah,
If 3 people
but,
put a 2
I
and
mean,
one
everybody will
puts
see,
a 5.
I'll call it, everybody will see it, and then we'll talk about it, that's all.
Okay, I just, wanted to
it's-
make sure
it's-
that, that one person that may have,
You get your time at the meeting to say why you
Yeah,
put a 1 and I put a 4,
it's a
or vice
discussion,
versa.
it's a discussion and a way to check in with how the manager is doing and how we may want to, look at moving forward if there are some areas we identify.
And
that
I
we
also
need to
think
improve on.
we submit them, like you're proposing on the 27th, that gives Rick a good amount of time to review our comments.
Well, hopefully, because I'll be away, probably won't get them
and
back
kind of
until May
present-
7th when I get back.
Present why it was.
And Rick will self-evaluate as well.
difficult, yeah.
Rick will self-evaluate also.
Is that the one where we burn the cloth, and if it's black smoke, he's fired, and if it's white, he's...
the one.
And then we wrap him up and dunk him in the water, and if he sinks,
right,
he's
all right,
human.
One of those immersion suits and push him out of the harbor. Okay, so May 8th, and we'll set the time later, and before you leave tonight, I will give you the forms. I have them here, I didn't want to put them in the packet, but, and if you want them in electronic form, just let me know, and I'll send them that way, too. Next item is appointment of list of election clerks as presented by the town clerk. This is something we have to do every couple of years. We have the list of Democrats, Republicans, and one unenrolled.
So on that note, we passed out legislation recently that allows for a greater ratio of unenrolled folks. However, it was an option given to town clerks that were having difficulties finding party-affiliated folks, and if they could only get a couple, 2 or 3, they could make up the difference with unenrolled, but the ratio still had to be, okay, you're not in that situation to where you have ample party folks, which is why there's only one of those pesky unenrolled independent people on there. You have a ton of Democrats and Republicans to choose from that want to engage with it.
Yes, I do have a fair amount.
Okay.
And on election day, they're evenly balanced, is that correct?
Right, so if I have to either have 1 and 1, or 2 and 2, 3 and 3, whatever.
So I guess I don't quite understand this. I mean, so can we check off people that we don't want on there? So we just approve?
Right, you just have to approve the list.
And it's a
I
list
move
of-
that we approve the list as submitted.
Because the parties gave me, the Democratic Party, for example, gave me a list of 2 or 3 people they wanted on there, which they have a right to do. I can put it on or not. 2 of them already on there, so I just entered the 3rd one.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second?
Are these all volunteers or are some reimbursed?
I may
I don't
ha-
mind reimbursement, I'm
No.
just curious.
I may have 2 or 3 that ask for reimbursement or to be paid. Most of them all volunteer. I cook for them and feed them.
I know.
Peanut butter balls.
So we have the motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. So that passes. And now, saving the best for last, the Northern Border Grant Resolution. Rick, do you want to?
This is a grant we've applied for a couple of times before with no real success, but Bill is working on another application for us. In this case, it will be for, instead of, in every other case, it was for planning purposes, for money for planning and for engineering. In this case, we're applying for money to help with the construction of the Route 1 sewer extension. It's a long shot for us, but it's still worth the effort. But in order for us to apply, the board has to vote to allow me to apply and sign all the documents.
I have a question. This is awesome. There was a good compelling reason to do sewer extension over, say, fiber optics?
That was the one that we had applied for previously.
And it had gotten rejected.
Got denied.
And so we think this one will be more competitive?
Well, I think Bill is thinking where, in both of those cases, it was for planning, and they're saying they want to put money into actual construction. That's our hope, anyway. Whether we'll get the full 500,000, we might get 200,000. Anything we get will help. Will help with the construction process. We're working forward on the TIF amendments, which will allow us to use the TIF proceeds that we have in that account to get the planning paid for, because we do have a batch of money in the TIF to do the engineering, so we can move this forward. It's just that the grant round is coming up, so we might as well get our grant application in. We submitted a intent letter a month and a half ago or 2 months ago that we were intending to apply, because they want to know what's out there, and we did that. And so now, I don't know whether it's a good sign or a bad sign or what, but now they want to know before we move forward. One of the things on the application is that we have the approval of the board to apply.
What's the anticipated revenue?
Well, that's up to $500,000.
No, I mean, when you put it down the road and it goes
User
by
fee.
somebody's house, I mean, you gotta have some idea now of what that might be.
I think, did Bill do a study on that?
Yeah, Bill, and he's working on the study now. There's a lot of moving parts. The total cost is about $4 million, is the total cost of it. So some of it will potentially be from CBDG funds. A lot of it will be paid for with TIF revenues.
No, I mean, the user, when it goes by the individual's house.
Yeah.
How much,
How much total are we going to bring in?
Right.
It depends on the parcels, and I think the issue is, you're going to get some revenue from user fees and debt service fees or capital maintenance fees and things like that. But the bigger payoff for us is not that money, it's the possibility of economic development and tax value in there.
I don't disagree, but I'm just saying it would be nice to have that number.
Yeah, we don't have that number yet. Bill is working on that.
You don't know how many are going to sign up.
Oh, I don't think you have to, do you? I mean.
No,
I know-
well, if they sign up, you're going to get more, though.
Right. But I mean, you at least have some idea now, if nobody signed up, what that income might be.
If it goes by 25 lots and everybody pays
$200, I think, is the.
$200, then you bring in whatever that
Is
is.
that a new user or is that debt service?
That's the debt service is, I think, $48 a quarter per equivalent user.
But that's like going by the new additions across from Eastwood, where there are so many people up there. Each one of them will absorb a fee.
A debt fee, yep.
Right, instead of
so-
just the one for the lot.
The question for the board is there a reason not to apply for this grant?
Well, that was kind of building on what Mark's been saying. So just running some quick, simple, big numbers. We're estimating it's going to cost $4 million to do it. The grant would be 500,000, so that brings the cost down to 3.5.
Right.
We think there'd be some various and sundry money from user fees. So I guess the question for me is, how much do we have in that TIF?
Remember, we've been talking about this for years. The TIF, the changes in the TIF and the extension and the extension of the time frame is almost enough to pay for the extension without any revenues coming in, without any additional revenues. The goal is to get it so that it's more productive and there is new additional revenues and get some grant money coming in. There is a potential developer that, some of the work that Bill is working on now is looking at potential community development block grant money. If some of those properties will be job creators, then we're eligible for a community development block grant funds that will tie into that. There's a lot of moving pieces here.
Have we, as the select board, then agreed with the philosophy of going ahead with that sewer extension?
We talked about it as
Yeah.
wastewater commissioners last
They've-
year.
yeah,
We looked
it's
at
been
it,
on-
looked at
it's
the-
been on our
If we
plate
could
for
connect the
5
two,
years.
the two ends, the two
Right.
stub ends,
Yeah.
that's a big end goal, and it gives us a lot of flexibility to, and correct me if I'm stepping out of line as it relates to pump stations and the actual.
Yeah,
We've got more options to
Right.
flow things to Camden or to
So
flow
we
things
think
to
it'd be a
Rockland.
good
A little
idea.
bit.
A little bit of options.
So the other part about that would be, once we increase flow to either one or the other, are there any projected numbers on what that might cost us because of the additional flow?
That gets paid for by the users.
Users, yeah.
And
And
then the
in
last,
both cases, we have enough capacity in both of our agreements with Camden and Rockland for the additional capacity.
because
Yes, I don't understand, again, where the discussion is going. I mean, if we think this is a good idea, and maybe that's where the question is, and, you know, we can get some free money for it, why are we talking about it?
So here were my two concerns. One is, if we tie ourselves to committing this project, is there the
This won't
potential
this doesn't do that. All it does is
having
apply.
to raise additional monies from the town to close a gap? With the TIF money there, that helps stabilize it. That's the nature of my questioning is, are we tying ourselves to a project to where we're gonna be forced to ask the taxpayers for $400,000 to close
No.
a
I
project?
think we're just applying for a grant, right?
And then the other question that I had is about the opportunity cost associated with the TIF monies. If we allocate this money to a good project, and I'm not opposed to this at all, but if we allocate a substantial amount of our TIF money to this, what are we not then spending that TIF money on?
That TIF money is.
That's strictly sewer.
So it's the sewer
strictly for
TIF?
sewer.
Okay, cool.
And the challenge is we're collecting money now with no place to spend it.
And how much longer do we have on that TIF?
It's running out, but the plan is to extend it for another 10 years.
Capture enough money to pay for this.
Okay, I'm good then. I'm good.
So
Remember we discussed
that's the
that.
next step.
Yep.
But this is just one step in many steps we need to take.
I move to authorize the town manager to apply for the Northern Border Regional Commission 2018 Economic and Infrastructure Development Investment Grant in the amount of $500,000 to extend municipal sewer along Route 1 and to sign applicable grant application documents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed?
Because we just got done with it, is this the same type of thing to where if we knew folks that were in that area on Route 1 that weren't in front of the sewer, so like I know folks at Cedar Works, would it be helpful to go and have a conversation? Because like you were saying with the CDBG grant, if we
Right.
can show job creation because of this, like we got some money, Mark and Doug, we got money to do our last sewer extension because we could show that Fresh Off the Farm is
Yep.
going to benefit from it. So if you've got folks that you know on Route 1 in that we're not covered area, having some conversations with them and stopping in and seeing if they can help make the case that this would be a good economic job
That's some of the,
creation.
that's some of the things Bill is working on that now, but that is a sizable piece of land,
Cedar Works.
Cedar Works.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few, you
Yeah.
know, those condominiums, I think, just had to put in a new septic system or something.
Yeah, you got all those condominiums. I mean, you've got bowling alleys there.
Sure.
You've got the
Down
small scale
east.
dental down
Yep.
east. And then just for the other folks, you pick the line back up at Penn Bay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, South Street, yeah.
Well, another one is that Dearborn property behind the bowling alley. that
Yeah,
is
that's another
sold.
one that's gonna be
which is-
redeveloped.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
Stuart
that's the
said
one.
he wasn't counting on that.
Behind,
initially.
heading towards the ocean?
Initially, yeah, but there is
It'll
a,
be different if it's there, he may change his mind. If it's-
Right.
if it's- He'll do it if it's cheaper for him.
Right.
That's what it's gonna boil down
well,
to.
there's a,
We can see
there is
that
a,
extend.
there is a business opportunity on that property as well, so then he would need.
They're gonna have to pump, I was just thinking about that. If we start making our way down to the ocean,
They gotta pump up.
pump
Oh, yeah.
up.
Okay, let's get to liaison reports quickly if we can. I guess I'll start at ORC. We pretty much dealt with tonight. Their season is finished. They had a good, productive season, I thought. Ambulance review, I did get a draft of the contract from Rick the other day. I sent a couple comments, and I think Mark got it too.
I've looked at it twice and I got glazed eyes the first couple of times, and I'm gonna do it again, but I didn't find anything that was,
I had a couple things that I noted.
Yeah.
We're meeting on Wednesday, so if you have any comments, please.
yeah, no, I thought it was well done. I thought the performance portion of it was good and the penalties and,
Yeah, and those will be negotiated, I'm sure.
yeah.
Cemetery committee had great designs to go down to the cemetery, and then we got a gigantic snowstorm, so we postponed that. But we're continuing to, the next meeting of the cemetery committee will be to go down to the cemetery and look at areas for the columbarium and try to help with that.
I drove through Seaview the other day. I had a half second, and I drove the whole thing. And nothing makes more sense than that current open area right next to the road. That just seems to make the most sense.
Well, it
to
depends
me.
on whether you, it depends, I mean, one of the things that I've thought is, one thing people might like is they might like a spot down near the water.
I know you get closer to the water the further down, but you can't see it from that's
Waterfront.
continuation of
Yeah.
Chestnut. No, it's not.
Water
But
view
whatever,
is what they-
that's one of,
One way I
that's,
could afford
that's
to
what the
water
cemetery
view.
committee will be doing in its next meeting, whenever that's set up, and hopefully when we get rid of the snow and the mud, we can go down there and do that. ZBA has not met. Legacy Rockport is starting to do a little bit of work on the lime kiln issue and trying to find some synergies there, and
And not much with Andre.
they looked at Andre, and there was a concern there about transporting it out, because I guess it was found out, everybody thinks it's marble, it isn't.
No.
It's limestone.
It's not marble.
I didn't know limestone was black.
But anyway, there was a big concern among the discussions of that group, that, because they looked at, Dave Jackson talked to us about the two options that you had about removing it from the property and then bringing it back or whatever, and we were, the group, and I'm no expert on it or anything, but there was a concern that driving the thing, taking it down someplace and fixing it and driving it back on a trailer, and you go over a big bump in the road or something, and the thing, because of what it's made of.
He had actually said that he could do it up here.
Yeah, I think, and that's what the Legacy Rockport was sort of looking more toward that, and so that's still in play for them also.
My very brief knowledge about masonry, I'd get it down to Andre. I'd get Andre to Andre at his shop,
Yeah.
and the transport back, I wouldn't be. What I think it's going to take a lot more time and actually a lot more money if he's got to drive and transport tools and do setup and tear down.
Yep.
Well, we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
I got the impression that it was actually gonna be less, but,
There's a heavy concentration of quartz in Andre's head. I think that's why he came off.
okay. So that's it for me, I believe. Unless I'm forgetting something, which I might be. Oh, one more thing. I wanna say the Library Design Committee met last week, and we had a really good discussion, and I wanna thank Doug for sort of getting that discussion going in the right direction. I think there was a lot more optimism among the group when we finished, that we can get to a place where we can be comfortable with a plan that's not terribly unlike what we have, that will satisfy everybody and be okay budget-wise and things like that. So, and you can follow up with that, with your take on that if you want.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Planning board for me was, again, I followed the process, going through these land use ordinances and whatnot, so that's been put to bed. Two new projects are percolating out there. Stuart Smith, working down at Oakland Park, and Rhino Landscaping Services wants to put in a work area back behind Smith and May area, and those are going according to plan. Harbor Committee, I believe, meets this week, so nothing new there. Keep Rockport Beautiful met, and we are putting together a calendar of events that'll be coming up over the next few weeks, including various cleanups, brush cuttings, et cetera, and we're trying to find a good way to publicize those. The Midco Solid Waste, you know, I'm not quite sure. I look at my community calendar, and which are my meetings to go to,
You
and
have one Wednesday night.
Are you not,
Is it
I'm taking it you're not on the email, they haven't put you on the email
that's
list then.
that may be part of the
I'll
issue.
talk with Jim,
yeah.
I'll get you on the email
So
list.
that's the Midco, I'm on the Midco Solid Waste Board of Directors, correct?
Wednesday night at 7.
7 o'clock. Okay, so that's my
And it has been
responsibility.
pushed back and then pushed back again.
All right,
It-
well,
it's
maybe
still
that's
Wednesday,
why.
right?
It's still
Oh,
Wednesday,
okay.
but we had a previous meeting that
Yep.
got canceled, I think, maybe because of weather, and then we had another one that got canceled because everyone else
So
was
it was
having
in budget
meetings that
meetings,
night.
right.
Okay. And then the
Oh, the
next
first
one
one-
after that's the 25th, so it meets every 2 weeks? Or is
No.
this a
Typically not,
catch-up?
typically not, it's a bit of a
Okay.
catch-up.
All righty, so noted. And the investment committee, again, I have not fulfilled my responsibility to sit down with Megan and figure out what's happening there. That's it for me.
Mine are pretty much dormant. Ken touched on the ambulance. Good.
Conservation Commission?
Haven't been lately.
Yes, that's what I got.
So I'm still trying to grow into Opera House, and I will check and try to make it to their next meeting. I forget that I'm the liaison to that now. Pathways, I was unable to attend the last one because of a meeting scheduling conflict, but I'll get an update from them. Rec is going to meet, they took a little bit of time off. They're gonna be meeting this Wednesday morning, so I'm gonna be attending that. And as Doug noted, Solid Waste has been having some difficulties getting meetings, but we'll be talking about probably an update on the redevelopment proposals. This is something you don't have to deal with, Doug, which is awesome, because Rick and I get to deal with the upcoming union contract.
Perfect.
Which I've already looked through and kind of found some interesting tidbits in there. And then, this is just kind of an aside, I've been trying to understand better what it takes to get reimbursed by the state for your landfill closure, because we are on this weird cuspy area of having a permit submitted before a certain date, but never having that application become a permit or a license that would have afforded us some reimbursement. But there's all kinds of stuff there. I'm continuing to work on that. It's more of a state issue.
You working on that through the legislature?
Well, it's kind of in tandem, trying to figure out what other landfills around the
Yeah.
state are in a predicament similar to us, but also what I've come to understand about this landfill closure money is it is a slow trickle that the state gets for revenue to pay these folks their reimbursements. And so even the ones that are there to the T and should be getting money from the state, it's a ridiculously
Oh, really?
slow trickle. Yeah, so even if we did get approved at some reduced rate, we may not get payments for reimbursement, but every 5 years, and they may not be what we think they're supposed to be. But anything's better than nothing.
On the Pathways Committee, would you, if you're comfortable, just sort of take the message to them that our budget this year, for better or worse, depending on how you feel about it, did place an emphasis on the sidewalks,
Yeah.
and also that we're interested in that inventory of sidewalks that they have?
Helen is
Yeah.
on the Pathways
Yeah,
Committee too. so
and I
she'll-
texted Mike when we were discussing it to have him
Okay.
check.
And we should be able to provide, I almost want to say that, oh, no, our sidewalk study isn't part of our Pathways. Pathways did a comp plan segment, and we have a lot of good information in there about priorities and stuff. But I'll get the current sidewalk inventory over to you all. It's pretty in-depth.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Included the
Anything
people's
else?
business. I move we adjourn.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Jeff, tell me when we're